Hey guys. Um, okay, awesome. Hey. Welcome. I'm gonna give us a few minutes to let people come in, and we'll get started. My name is Essay, and I am just a fellow mom who has gone down this 11 plus route. And so just trying to help people through, for me, which was a lot of research and schedules and all the things to kind of get this up and running and get my son to where he is now. So I'm gonna, yeah, just be sharing with you some of my thoughts and some of my learnings. So some of my friends in my local church, and I'm in another group who said I would love to just know, how you did this and what you use and resources. And I started sending messages and things to different people. I thought, let me just put it on a call, and so that as many people I can help, whether you're using a tutor or not using a tutor, because what I have found, even my friends who use the tutor, there's still so much involvement that goes in, and so yeah. Okay, so if let people know, some people saying that they're getting an error, do let me know that you can see and hear me okay before I get started, and I'll share my screen and we'll get going. Okay, Chris said it's working for me. Okay, perfect. Thumbs up. I love that. Yeah, so Suresh is sometimes a tutor's not enough, and I agree. Like a really good friend of mine whose daughter um goes to Chis and Sid, she went through the process. She did have a tutor, and I think it was a once a week tutor. It depends the type of tutor you have. If you have like a one-on-one, um, maybe several times a week, it also depends on your child. So that's what I'm going to kind of be going through. So again, okay, people saying everything's okay. I'm literally gonna give one more minute and then I'm gonna go through. This person took some notes down because I wanted to kind of share as much in my mind and as much of my resources as possible. And I just want to have a caveat. This is what worked for me and my child. I don't even know if it will work for like I have another daughter. This may not be the same process that works for her. I don't know. I'm just saying that this is what worked for me. And I'm not gonna lie, I was even surprised by his results because we didn't use a tutor. I'll show you some resources. Then we did have some external help and some godsends that I absolutely feel made the biggest big difference. I'm gonna go through and show you the biggest differences that I felt was made. Um, and so my son did have some natural talent. I say in the more the math side. But yeah, we're gonna dive in. I'm just putting my notes up so I can still see you. I'm looking away because I'm just looking at my notes that I just made. Um, and we will get started. Okay, so the first thing I just want to kind of just go through and just briefly kind of share and highlight. Um, Let me kind of get to it. Oh, where are you guys gone? Perfect. So yeah, the first thing I want to kind of share and highlight is just a little bit of background about my son and about what it is that we did. Now, my son he goes to a local school. We don't go to a private school or anything like that, and he just goes to a local school in Bromley. So I live in the kind of Bromley-ish area, and it was a good school, but I don't think it was particularly one that like super pushed him, if I'd say, in terms of the type of things that you need for 11 plus, specifically like in the non-verbal. They don't really teach that kind of thing. And so yeah, so I don't think it was something that was super it's not like a very selective school. It's just a nice, good Christian school that I liked it, if that makes sense. And so because of that, we when I heard about grammar schools, and I did see that my son was naturally bright in certain things, and some things like and like he had an affinity for maths. He loved maths. He would see my husband playing with a Rubik's cube and he'd teach himself to do the Rubik's cube, and he just was really into maths quite early on. He likes playing chess and things like that. Um and so I'd say um year I'll say in year three, we were just kind of doing the kind of TT rock stars and things to kind of get him kind of better at the things he was already doing, if that made sense. And then we then thought about get grammar schools, and we'd heard about it and wanted to kind of go down that route. So yeah, just to answer the questions, we were not at any private school or prep school. We are at a local good rated primary school, and so we started the school so we started the prep. I'll say maybe the end of year three, kind of going into year four was when we really started. In terms of, I'll say, because he's really good at maths, his vocabulary I wouldn't say was the widest. And if anything, and you'll find out as I go through, English was his biggest struggling point, was where he initially scored lowest, and where I feel we needed the biggest help. I'll say even now he's got a much wider vocabulary, but we're working on his actual speaking in terms of speaking with more clarity, speaking with more fluidity. Just because I don't know, he's a young 10-year-old kid who hasn't, I don't know, he's got definitely got a better written than speaking, so we're working on that. But just he wasn't reading books, I would say, that had the widest vocabulary, and this is what you would find. So so someone's just asking how do we do. So I'm just gonna quickly share that. I did share it on beforehand. Share my screen. Let me just share entire screen. So you should be able to see. Hold on, I need to get permissions on my computer to share my screen. Give me a second. System settings, and then privacy and security, and then sharing my screen. And then I need to give permission to, what did it tell me I need to add? I need to add, oh, let's tell my Google Chrome to allow it to share screen. All right, give me a second, guys. Okay, let's try this again. Let me see if I can share my screen now. All right, guys, I'm gonna quit. It's telling me to log out and log back in, so I will. Hold on. Okay, give me a second. Hey guys. Okay, I'm back. So I'm just trying to see if I can do this now because it wasn't letting me share my screen, and the whole point of this is I wanted to share with you all the resources. So let's see if this was working now. Okay, so it is working now. Okay, so just in terms of a question someone had asked in terms of what he did. So obviously we did the Kent 11 plus, for which he scored 100%. He got 423 out of 423. And we did the Bexley 11 plus, and he was one of the super select top 100, 180, as well as the St. Olave's, and he's passed through to the first stage, and we have a second stage on the 15th of November. So hopefully that answers that. And so in terms of yeah, thanks guys for your patience. So in terms of how the road of what we get there, I want to go through and just kind of share with you that process. So the very first thing I did was I had to take some time to really understand where my son was at. So to doing that first assessment, and what I used to do that massively and a lot through the process was the bond books. And the reason why, I mean, I did a lot of research into all the books that are out there. I'm not saying the other ones won't work, but the reason why I went with the bond books more so than the others, if that makes sense. And when I say the others, I'm talking about the ones that have the kind of assessment style in terms of you're working through from a young age, was because bond itself, they do have like 11 plus, but age appropriate 11 plus. For example, my daughter now is 7. And so, unlike some of the resources which are only for when you're studying 11 plus, when you're nearly at the end, they have the bond books from a very young age. So you can do 11 plus, but for the age 5 to 6, and then for 5, 6 to 7, and 7 to 8, right? So I used those books in the beginning. And do let me know you guys can see and hear me again. But I used those books in the beginning to really help with the assessment. And what they would tell you, if you're getting less than 80%, okay, perfect. If you're getting less than 80% on those books, that you're able to go and do, you're able to do the next ones, and then you'll tell you to do, go to the next one if you're getting more than or less than. And why I chose bond just over CGP or C, is it CGP or CPG? I chose bond over that because when I looked and compared the two, they seem to be harder on the bond for the age group. And also, I don't think CGP at the time when I started, they didn't have it as young an age. And what I mean as young as an age is that, and they may have changed it now, but when I first started, my son was doing the age 5 to 6 bond, 11 plus, and then 6 to 7, and they didn't go down that low. I think they only had maybe 9 to 10, or maybe 8 to 9. So I started with bond because they went as low as when he was in year three. Um, yeah, so he says CPGP now do 7 and 8, but Bond do lower than that. Bond do, if I'm looking at here now, Bond do as young as 5 to 6, for example. And so it just happened to be for me, I started on that and I continued. So I'm not, and when I compare the two of them, even though I like CGP better as a brand, because I think as a brand they're better at the engagement of children and little jokes and things like that. And I think this is where it's good to know your child, because my son, he's very like he's been super, like his whole life he's been super calm, he's very compliant, he just gets along with things, he's a very happy child. And so he doesn't necessarily need the most happy and engaging book to kind of get along with a task, because he really likes learning. Now I'll talk a little bit about some of the mental blocks that I've come across, because it wasn't all happy because he loves learning. But in that way, if I say, okay, hey Jude, we're going to be doing this, he's going to be okay, and he'll get along and do it. So taking a step back, I'm just looking at my notes, because the one thing I wanted to clarify in the beginning before we even get into it is, you need to know if your child, I mean, some people would say otherwise. I don't think 11 plus is for every single child. I'm going to be honest, like 11 plus and just grammar schools, obviously are meant to be for those who are, the brightest students. And I'm not saying you can't take a child who maybe wouldn't pass it naturally on their own and help them to be able to pass it. But what I mean is that I didn't want it to be a thing where I was pushing and forcing my son into it. And me and my son have a very open, very good relationship where I can be honest with him and say, hey, this is the reason why we want you to go to these schools. This is what we believe going to these schools would do and would be, but it is going to mean a lot of extra work. And I'm going to show you his timetables, because I'm going to be honest, like he did a lot of extra work. And you need to make sure you have a child who can handle that. Because if you have a child who you're trying to give them to do, and at one point he was doing 12 hours extra work a week outside of going to school, some children will be really resistant and could be crying. And I just didn't want that for my child. I knew that my child's temperament and his affinity for learning, I think he could have done it, but I don't think every single child can do it, if that makes sense. So that's why I would say that I'm not 100% sure that 11 plus is for every child. So I'll just caveat it with that. And then also, I would say that when I really kind of looked to kind of figure out what Judah needed help most with, I knew he was already naturally bright, specifically in the math area. And so I felt to myself, well, because I feel he's naturally bright, and I did take some assessment papers where you can see where your child ranks. And if your child is doing 50% or less on those initial assessment papers, especially in year like 5, to get them up to like 80s and 90s, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a lot of work. And I think you got to think about the dynamic of and the happiness of your child. I'm going to be honest. So I was born in the UK, but my parents are Nigerian, and so like I was more of a straight A student from, I wouldn't say fear, but in a Nigerian household, there's no other option than straight A's, right? But it doesn't mean that I didn't like the childhood that my parents kind of made that be the case, if that makes sense. So it was really like you like, if I didn't get an A, super stressful, and I didn't like that, and I didn't want that for my son. And so yeah, so I would definitely say you want it to be children who like he enjoys reading, he enjoys learning. He's never ever said I don't want to go to school. Like he's in 6 now. He's always loved going to school, for example. And so I'd say just think about that. Just moving on quickly, 'cause I've got so much content and I don't want to be here. Oh, it's already 20 minutes in. Okay, so the next thing on my list, so is yeah, I wanted to kind of get into the resources, because I think it's what a lot of people are kind of here for. So the resources that I used, as I mentioned, when I did the assessment, I saw he was really good in maths. And so I used the bond books, and and I was extremely diligent, right? I want to kind of go through and show, where is this, my Google Sheets, because I created Google Sheets. Let me get that sheets. Am I spelling that right? Yep. And I created a spreadsheet, and what I would do, and I said, you need to know your child, you need to know if they're going to be able to get all the kind of that work done. But I did create these spreadsheets of like that had essentially every single, and this is just a snippet, for example. I'm going to go through and share my screen with you again. Where am I? Share my screen. Just going to share. All right. So this is a snippet of a times table I put together for him. I want to explain here is, again, I looked at the different subjects. He had English, so that's kind of reading comprehension. He has some more kind of reading, and I'm going to get into these books, which were like, I cannot explain. Anyway, we'll get there, because the books that he read, that it took his vocabulary from where we were to where we are, like it's a whole section in itself. But you can see here where I've gone the maths, English, non-verbal, and verbal, and I'll be going through the books, and every single time I would go through the books, I would know how long it takes to do an assessment, and I was saying, okay, this is the spring term, early spring, and I was mapping out every book that they published, he was going through. And this is by the time he was now doing 10 to 11, but he did 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. And sometimes they'll have book one and book two, and they will even have challenge, which is like the third level of it. And he was going through and he was doing all of them. And I had them all in a schedule of everything, the assessments, the practice papers, flashcards, all that kind of good stuff. So I used bond books very, very deeply and thoroughly, because I needed to make sure I covered the breadth um of everything, if that makes sense. I need to make sure I at the breadth. So would you mind circling your S over, what's S over S? Let me know what that is. Is it MKE? Would you mind circulating? Oh, my spreadsheet. I'm gonna double check. I mean, I'm not too sure about some of these things here I put together. If I'm able to normalize them and take away just some of his personal details and stuff like that, so I would look into that kind of thing. But yeah, in terms of the books, people saying share the books. The books here. So I'm gonna quickly go to you on an Amazon. You can get them on what you call this. You can literally just get them on, yeah, like W.S. Smith. But the ones, so the bond books, these are the ones, and I'll buy them in bundles of like this one here. This is what I mean. Even though it's 11 plus, you can buy for the age. So if your child is age 5 to 6, you start on this one. And then from 5 to 6, like my daughter now, she's 7, so she's currently going for 7 to 8. Then when she finishes all the 7 to 8, she's going to do the 8 to 9, and then the 9 to 10, and then the 10 to 11. I think they even do 11 to 12. So again, we did them all, and they have book one and they have book two. And these are assessment papers. So what it means is that inside the book, they just have back-to-back assessments. So in terms of learning things, and when I think about it now, what did he use to learn? Because you, a lot of the time, you learn. He learned from just doing the assessments. I didn't actually have, again, there was no tutors in terms of teaching him this type of stuff. This was him just going through and doing the back-to-back assessment papers. So this is the ones that he was doing. Just bonds, millions of these books. We've got so many stacked up in the house that we're just giving to friends and family now that we finished. Because by the time my daughter gets there, in because she's only year 3, they may be a new version, and I'll just buy them again if I'm honest. And that's one thing I'm going to say actually. Even though I didn't use a tutor, everything costs. It's time or money. Um, it's not necessarily free, if that makes sense. Um, okay, so yeah, I did use atom. I'm gonna get onto that, guys. So I did Cadwallader. Okay, so this is what I want to come to next. The Cad, because someone's asked me what is Cadwallader, and I want to explain to you. And like I literally, so let me take a step back, because I get excited about this, and the reason why is because I feel like I found like a hidden treasure. I know it might it may sound a little bit like okay, I like for me, I didn't even realize things like this existed, right? My son, his weakest point was in English, and specifically English was vocabulary, because there's words you just don't know. When I look at the 11 plus test, they're asking words that you simply don't know. So typically, a child of their age, they learn about 1,000 words a year, but the type of words they're going to learn is going to be dependent on what they're consuming. And I'm going to be honest, my son isn't reading the Financial Times or reading some, those kind of things because they're not interesting for a child. And what I try to do, I try to get him some of the classics. So I've read the Jane Eyres. I remember reading of Mice and Men. I read, the Gulliver's Travel, the old version, Alice in Wonderland in the old English. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and get him to read those. And for my son who likes reading, who reads for fun, he wasn't even making it past. He didn't even make it past one book. And I thought to myself, this was really odd because he loves reading. And he just said like he wasn't able to follow the books and he wasn't finding that interesting. And it was weird for my son because he genuinely loves reading. And I remember at a time we were doing some of these practice papers, and some of the practice papers that we were doing, he would be scoring high in your maths, in your non-verbal. He I didn't even know that was a thing with him, but he was really good at non-verbal. But English and verbal, he was in this, maybe I'll say late 60s, early 70s. And again, remember, I am in Bromley, so I knew he had to score high. Like we weren't moving, and in Bromley, it's either St. Olave's, which is so super select here, or it's Bexley and Dartford, or Bexley and Kent, which again for us to get a school out of catchment in Bexley, you have to be in a top 180 out of I think it's maybe 6,000 students who apply, or in Kent, I remember they sent an email one time, 17,000 children registered for the Kent test, and so this year, for example, Dartford Grammar that used to take 90 students have made it only 50 students this year. They'll take from out of catchment. So this is what I decided to do. So I was at wit's end. I was trying to get him to get better at it. And remember, I'm not a tutor. So I'm sitting down with him, and I mentioned before, he loves learning, but one thing about my son, he likes to do things that he's good at. So he likes doing the maths and the non-verbal because he's already good at it. But when he got to doing the English, he didn't like it, if that makes sense. And he would get upset and get frustrated. And sometimes even be in tears. And I really hated that. And I remember I looked back. I was trying to think about how did I come across this woman in this book. I was in a Facebook group, an 11 plus Facebook group, and it was my cry for help. I prayed about it. I'm a Christian, and I prayed and said, Lord, what's happening? I really need help with this. I'm not getting through to him. He's getting frustrated and crying. How can I help him with English? And I put a message in a Facebook group, and then somebody recommended, say, oh, I use these books by this lady. And essentially, the way she described it is like, imagine you've got like, I don't know if you know like Percy Jackson or kind of Harry Potter, but so it's got the interesting type of storyline like that, but it has the hard vocabulary that you would need in 11 plus. And I was like, I couldn't understand how they met it. I'm gonna try and think because I have all the books, and I have the Kindle, and I bought everything basically. And I'm gonna try and see if I could I don't know if I can log into my Kindle on my computer. I don't know if I can only do that from. I might have to get the app up. So I want to kind of show you what I mean when I say it has on the same page in the book, it would have a story, and a really amazing story. And one thing he said he loved the story. He said it was super engaging, but it has difficult vocabulary. I'm trying to find. Okay, I find this is okay. I found the website. Let me share this with you. Let me share my screen so you guys can see what I mean. Dun, 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 share. So this is the lady's name. Her name is Sheena, and she has written essentially. And I don't know if she came from maybe she's a background of being an English teacher. I know she has herself has children who she really helped them to get into super select grammar schools. And I remember one time she was telling a story of, I think it was a very similar situation where her children just didn't really resonate with the books that are out there, the classic books that would have hard vocabulary, but then would be good enough or would be interesting enough. So you want the ones that have the hard vocabulary, but also interesting enough for children. It just wasn't there. So she's written two different, so one's for children in year 4 and one's for children in year 5, two different sets of books that does just that. And I can't explain to you. Like I asked my son when we finished doing 11 plus and we got the scores. I said to him, "What are the top 3 things you would say that made a difference?" And he said, "Number 1, it was Sheena and the books. Number 2, it would have been, I think he said second thing was we did some exam papers at the end, and I'll go through those ones that he did. And the third thing, what was the third thing you said? The third thing, was one of the platforms in terms of it gave him access to. It was able for him to see his progress, and I'll go through those two as well. How he used Atom. So for me, I feel like this is one of the biggest things because English was a thing that he struggled with most, and that's why when I got the results, I couldn't believe it because for him to get 423, that means he would have got 100%. He would have got not even one English question wrong. And usually in practice, even as he got better, there would always be one question in vocabulary or inference. He struggled a lot with inference. Inference is a very adult skill. Inference is like even why they expect children to know how to do inference at 10 years old, I don't know. Because inference is not a child skill at all. And so what these books did, as I said, there is so imagine like two different I don't know what you call them, um like so each book kind of carries on from the previous one. So these four here are from one, and these are the ones you read in year four, and then these are the ones you read in year five. And the funny thing is I only came across these books of Sheena in year five, but this is how I'm a dedicated mum, and he read all these seven books, and she had some workbooks at the time, and we bought all of them. And I'm in a group with some of the people who are and this is the sorry, I didn't even get to one of the best things. So when you buy the books, right, and you're going through, and I'm going to get my Kindle up so you can kind of see what this looks like in terms of the books themselves. But what would then happen is she kind of runs these free classes every Saturday and every Sunday, where she's not going through like the book in terms of like the reading the book, but she's teaching the children like how to do inference, how to you can see a word and you have no idea what the meaning is, but how you can tell the meaning based upon I think he says by the company it keeps. And I would see him week on week just growing. Not only was he growing in getting better answers in his assessments, he was just growing in confidence in terms of how he was able to do it. And again, I'd never met this woman from anywhere. I didn't know her from anywhere. But yeah, it was just she was run these free classes. And so again, I'll post a link to the website here, kind of thing. I'm just logging into my Google to kind of give you not my Google, my what's this? My Kindles. It's asking me for don't know what's asking me for a special code. To do so. But yeah, and so we bought all the books hard copy. We also bought them like I got the Kindle because he sometimes would be on the go. And this is what I mean when you got to be dedicated. Because if we were on holiday, if we were out, out and about, we'll be in the car. We logged on to these classes every week. And I think apart from when she had maybe it was her son's maybe birthday or holidays. Someone said I can't see or hear anything. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh yeah, we can. Okay, she is here. Hey, we could often understand the meaning of a word by the company keeps. Yeah, so he would have these things he would talk about, and I would just see yeah, she did books just like amazing. Like I can't recommend that. And for those of you who are here from her class, because like again I told her that I was hosting this because like, again my church was people in my church who are also here. And I just said to him like I can't understand why some people don't understand the value they're getting. I honestly believe for the help that Sheena has given Judah, I would have had to pay probably thousands in tuition. And I don't exaggerate because a friend of mine who did pay thousands, um, in terms of tuition, and I'm not trying to say like the factor of him getting the score is only this, but in terms of this being the biggest area for where he's gone from, I'll say roughly high 60s, low 70s to essentially 100%. And this is it. This for me was the vocabulary. This for me was in terms of what's the other thing? Spag. This for me was like the only thing I think that was not included was things like codes, like the word codes. But again, because he's very mathematical minded, he was super good with that. He didn't need help with that, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, so the books he absolutely loved these. You know what I mean? And I want to show you because on my schedule that I set him, he would read these every single day. And I'm gonna I'm gonna share my screen. I want to share my screen of the Kindle so you can kind of see what it is because I think this was um such a big difference this made. Where is my Kindle that I've just opened? Windows. It's not a Chrome tab. I need to let me share my entire screen and I'll flip over to it. Okay, so this is, for example, one of the books Tangle Time. It's like I know them all. And and here it slightly looks differently than in the actual physical books. In the physical books, you would have all the words that are in bold are words that are deemed to be maybe words they may not know or maybe a little bit difficult for them. And so here you can click on it because it's the Kindle, but on the physical book, they would just be in a list at the bottom of a page. And so every single word that they may not know, you would be able to click on that word, and again, a footnote comes up: administer, dispense, to give out, or apply, with synonyms and antonyms. And so he was like, he'll be reading the story, and that's the reason why. The reason why he switched to the so he would read it on the Kindle some days and in the physical books other days, and it's like a normal flow. And he's not writing them down or doing some special memory. He's just reading the story, and because he's following an interesting story, he may not know what the word bogus is, but this bogus act, he'll click on the word bogus. What does it mean? Oh, okay, it's not true. It's a bit not genuine. And so he says bogus kind of means like sus, like the young kids say. And he's just synonymized that bogus means sus. And he'll continue. And then he continues reading. And so it didn't even interrupt his flow. But as you can imagine, when he's reading, and he read 7 of these books. So the first 4 were for the year 4. And he was actually reading them a little bit in tandem because he started the first one of the year 5 ones. But then, and because we came across her, I think it was just before the summer holiday of even going into year 5. That summer holiday, I got him to read all of the year 4 to kind of catch up. I think even one of the books came out a bit later. So he said it was easy to kind of go between the two because they're two kind of like separate stories, obviously within their kind of books, but one's like a prequel to the other. So, and I thought was a bit confusing. He was like, no, he was following the story and he was loving on all of the Welsh names, and yeah, he couldn't get enough of it. And and every single day he would read his book, and I didn't have to. For literally, I'd wake up in the morning, and he's been up since like 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m., and he's already read his daily chapter because we had it on his schedule to read a chapter a day. And sometimes he'll be reading it and read the next chapter because maybe he was in the story kind of thing. So the weekend would come and he's already read like another 3 or 4 days because he wanted to finish a bit or find out what would happen. And so yeah, he absolutely loved it, and I would say that this was probably one of the biggest things that helped. And what I loved is that, so obviously in the book you're reading the book, but then in these sessions that she would host, which I say she would host, she still hosts. He's sadly left the classes because obviously he's finished it now. But he would, because I would always overhear he'd be in these classes, and she would go through like comprehension questions based off maybe the chapter they're reading, or she would go through the biggest one, which I think all the children needed, is understanding inference. I think that was the biggest thing, that again the tears and the difficulties in the beginning, because you just couldn't understand it. Like imagine you have a piece of story, and it might say, well, why do you think Susan, looked away? And he was like, oh, maybe something it was in her eye. He'll just have a random. I'm like, the text doesn't talk anything about that. It said it was windy. Maybe why are you not talking about something more logical to the text? But he wouldn't connect because he's extremely logical. He's extremely like literal. I'd say he thinks like that. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I think that was really good. And I think the only stipulation I think was like, yeah, she wants you to kind of have read the books before you join the lessons or something like that. But my key thing is like I can't express how much of a benefit and a help. And so when I'm in the group and I hear people would be moaning, why do I need to buy the book and buy the Kindle and all this kind of nonsense? I'm like, guys, you're getting free like expert level tuition here, and like, okay, you got to pay an extra $10 for the book. I can't get that. And I'm not trying to say that someone's going to say we have the same child. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that no cost of living isn't costing and living, and we've got money to throw around. But if you understand the investment and what getting into a really top grammar school is, and remember, I'm not paying tuition fees, and all I'm doing is buying like a $10 book. Like this is why I'm like I just can't fathom. I can't. And for me, I feel she's got a heart of a saint, because I'm just not as like, if I was getting some of the messages that I see in the group, I would have closed it down. I mean, but don't close it for all those who need it. Don't close it. But yeah, I just feel like I just wouldn't have the patience. And every day, or what time is the class, and the pin posts are there, and I'm just like, oh God, like That is anyway. I don't discourage her. You know what I mean? Because I think she watched it. I wanted to continue, and my daughter's in year three, so I need her to still be able to join the classes next year. And she would have read all the books, but yeah, I literally say I believe she was a godsend because I said I was at my wits end, really trying to help my son with the English, and I literally I just I couldn't. It's like I felt I couldn't get through. But he would be in these classes and he was so enthused and he'd put his hand up and I just saw his confidence in English grow in a way that like beforehand he would physically break down and sometimes be in tears when we were going through the bond books. And I want to think just mention something back onto the bond books, right? Is that because of the fact that bond, they don't it's not multiple choice. Remember that where I am, again, I'm in Bromley, so the Kent, Bexley, and I believe St. Olaf's stage one, not the stage two he's about to do, they were all multiple choice. But because we always thought about the fact that if, for example, St. Olaf's he goes into stage two, it's not a multiple choice, as well as some of the private schools. So we are applying for some private schools, and for some scholarships, etc. Because now I'm like, oh, well, if you can get 100%, maybe you can get a scholarship into one of the schools, right? Because I haven't got private school money. And so because of that, now I'm really grateful because Bond makes you write out the answers. And I wish I had one of the Bond books here, and maybe I might mention my husband to bring one and maybe show you on the screen because it's not multiple choice in the maths. Apart from I think the English, no, not the English, the non-verbal and verbal is multiple choice in the Bond books, but the maths and the English you have to write the answers. And so it was because he was had so used to doing that, which is actually harder because remember, multiple choice is leading the witness. You can for me, I'm great at deducing the answer, and I remember I've got a 25% chance of getting it right, even just by guessing. But because he had to learn and had so much practice of the Bond books and writing the answers, then switching over to the actual multiple choice of the GL is why I think it may have been so easy for him, right? And so yeah, and so I feel like I'm seeing people here saying, yeah, my son goes to a prep school, but please know that this does not mean prep 11 plus is extensive. Yeah, I don't know how much the 11 they prep you in there, but because obviously I know people who went to a prep school and obviously didn't pass. So it's not even only down to that. So that was when I say again, I've got three big main resources, and I'm going to go through some other smaller ones, but that I say is probably the biggest resource. And for me, it was one of the because of our personal challenges in terms of with my son, I feel that is one of the most beneficial resources. If you have a child who is super kind of big on like really super good with maths and struggle with English, for some reason it seems like that's a common theme. You can have a child who's really brilliant on maths, but they're not as brilliant with English because it's such a different part of your brain, if that makes sense, in terms of specifically, I'm telling you, comprehension and it with like comprehension I can now say it was his it was like a thorn in his side, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I'm just gonna double check and making sure I'm keeping up the comments. um dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so how would you best recommend, okay, so how would you recommend supporting year three children get them used to reading? So obviously, I understand, Sheena's books because again, they only start in year four. So my daughter's in year three now, and I thought about, oh, I can get her to start reading the books early, and I probably will get her to start reading them the summer before she goes into year four. But I'm not gonna. But you need to get them reading and reading being a habit, so that when you're introducing a new book, because let's be honest, Sheena's books are more challenging than your like Diary of a Wimpy Kid is not gonna cut it. Harry Potter is not gonna cut it. What's the other one he reads? Percy Jackson is not gonna cut it. They're interesting. They're not gonna cut it vocabulary wise. They're just not gonna cut it. But what would be good is if you get them reading those kind of books or any kind of books beforehand, so they like reading. And one thing is like my children, like, again, I sent them I say sent them to bed. Judas went to his room to read. Once it was 7:30, my younger one goes to bed and Judah goes to his room to read because reading is so part of his normal life. Because what some people don't realize is that they want their child to go to a grammar school, but they're not cultivating the lifestyle that a grammar school would hold. And the funny thing is that I have a brother-in-law who put his two of his children into through the 11 plus process, even though he wasn't planning to take them to a grammar school. They're quite close to a really good comprehensive school, But he just knows that by them doing it, getting used to doing work, all that kind of stuff, they're not getting, especially if you do not come from a prep school already. Because prep schools, they may be good at homework. My primary school, my son goes to, he doesn't get any homework. I know, like, he doesn't do any homework. They just don't do it. And so I needed to make sure that because we weren't coming from a prep school, he wasn't going to be at disadvantage. So that's what I would say: get them reading. Flashcards, I'm not the biggest of flashcards. We did do a little bit of flashcards. It didn't go down that well, so we stopped it. So we didn't do much flashcards. Um, okay, what if your child is stronger in English than maths? Would you have a recommendation? Yes, I'm gonna go. That's what I'm gonna go into next. Making sure I'm up to date with the comments, and then I'm gonna go. Someone said, "Essay pre the lifestyle." I'm telling you, it's a lifestyle, guys. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say if you haven't already, I'm gonna put again. I wish I don't know if Sheena has a link because there's a she kind of runs the kind of free sessions through a Telegram uh kind of group, if that makes sense. And I'm going to paste here the link to, because I know currently at the moment you can get these her books on like a bundle. You can get them from her website directly. So which I would recommend. And again, my son, we had the physical books and the Kindle, because it made sense that the physical books really helped in just throw it in the bag wherever we're going. You can read it. You know what I mean? You never, sometimes we'll be stuck somewhere. Once we went to we were on a where were we going recently? We went to the Paris Olympics kind of thing, but just throw it in your bag and you just, you know what I mean? Wherever you're at the airport, because we got stuck at the airport for a while, just have a book with you, right? Um, so I'll definitely say it's just a good thing to just have the physical. But then what I liked about the Kindle one was the ease of like you could start a book and carry on. He always knew where he was. So we just had, like, I think the Kindle for me is I think £10 a month, and then the books are on there. But I definitely say the physical books, being able to have them anywhere. Some people say either or. I would, if it's going to be one, I would say the physical books probably would be better. um because you'll see, because I'm not able to show you, but you have it gives you the list of all the difficult words at the bottom, as well as it bolded in line, if that makes sense. And so it's easy when you're reading just to kind of flick your eyes, look at what it means, and flip back, kind of thing, rather than the clicking on the Kindle. So that's my preference. Maybe I'm just old school. I love a good physical book. But we did have both in the end, just for that. But I'm gonna post a link just to the site where I know that you can get that bundle. To put that in the chat. I don't know if she knows this. But there is a group that she has. Yeah, so I'll say hands down one of the best things ever. Um, okay, so next is, did you prep for grammar and private, and was the approach similar for both? What about 10 plus versus 11 plus? Thank you. Okay, so we mainly just did for 11 plus. We weren't going to take him up the primary school year early. Um, because of the COVID year, his school, he didn't change years. He's been the same friends since reception, and he absolutely loves them. And I wouldn't have wanted to take him out a year early when he has such a great bond with his school friends. So I didn't do that. And the funny thing is, I didn't prepare for the private school, even though he's going to sit some of the exams now. Because at the time, because I knew that I'm not trying to pay private school fees. Now I believe that, okay, he could probably get 50% plus scholarship, maybe bursary, etc. So we're looking at it. And I think because of how far he's come in this, oh, perfect. Sheena's put the Facebook group where you can join. Because of that, now I think to myself, okay, we're gonna try our hand at it. But with the scores he's got, God willing, he passes the St. Olaf's. We put St. Olaf's as our first choice. But obviously, with a score of 423, even though we're out of catchment, he can go to any school in Kent he wants. I think our second chance with Dartford Grammar, and he gets any choice in Bexley, because he's top 180 in Bexley. So for us, our main goal was just being able to have the choice of what we wanted in the grammar schools, mainly not having to move. And so that was kind of it there. Okay, so yeah, so I'm gonna go through now. That was in terms of the vocabulary, etc. Now, in terms of creative writing, I'm gonna quickly go through a little bit of creative writing, just because some questions there before I move on to the maths. In terms of the creative writing, so we use, I think, Robert Lomax. I think I'm saying, is it Robert Lomax, or I think it's Robert Lomax. He has some really good books on creative writing. But this is what my secret is, and this is why I say know your child. And I'm not saying this will work for everybody, right? I want to be very clear. This may not work for everyone, but because of my son is so logical, everything we were doing around creative writing and stuff like that, we would turn it into a mathematical problem, if that makes sense. And what I mean is, for example, when you have creative writing and it'll tell you to describe something or write something XYZ, we've come up with our own personal, what I call the 3 by 3 rule. Because Judah needs a certain mental structure, otherwise, he can get stuck in analysis paralysis. So, how we plan it, so imagine that now there's a drawing of, I don't know, a dolphin jumping out of water. And the books, so Robert Lomax's books are really good in telling you how to do creative writing. They'll say how you and I'll definitely recommend his books. I think I'll try and find it because he's got several of them, and we're literally going for one of them now because we've got creative writing in the St. Olaf set too. I think it's Robert Lomax, is it? Yeah, is it Robert Lomax creative writing? And he'll teach you. So let me quickly go share my Amazon, share with the, so you can see the book, share screen. It's this one here. So these are the books we use for creative writing. We've only gone through the first book one. We're about to go through book two. They've got book two and book three. And we haven't gone through all of them. So we're literally going to go a bit of a crash course over the next how many days now? Like 10, 12 days to really get his creative writing up. But the reason why, but I'm confident in it in terms of what I say, creating a system, because what he will do, what these books are really good at, you can see the reviews, super good. They teach you the basics of that creative writing, and then um oh yeah, there we are. Robert's, yeah, Robert, yeah. So he's really good. He's got a YouTube channel, like again, a really good resource. Um, but for me, I just created structure. So he may say, for example, you want to make sure that you when you're describing a thing, think about the five senses, and you want to make sure that you talk about, whatever he's describing of how you would do it. I would then turn it and say, okay, so Judah, if you have a photo and say you should describe it, we're going to do a 3 by 3 matrix where you've got to choose three different parts of it. So it could be, if it's a story, it's beginning, middle, and end. If it's an image, you talk about you from top, middle, and bottom. You just choose three. You divide it somehow into three, and then we choose within those three. We choose three senses, or we would create our own little structures that he could follow. So if it was, for example, a portrait of a woman, and he had to describe her, the top three would be maybe her hair, maybe her face, and maybe like her shoulders. He'll choose three things, and of those three, he would then choose. Okay, so how can I describe her hair with three senses? How can I describe her hair? And so we'll have that, and then we have this thing where when you're doing describing, there we have banned words. You can never use nice. You can never use good. You can never use happy. You can never use sad. And we would say we would need tertiary words. So tertiary means, I don't like, primary word is nice. Then better than nice is it could be great, but then better than great, a tertiary word could be ecstatic, right? So then we would just have these kind of little formulas on how we would turn something that seems very fluid and creative into a structured thing. And I would even say, for example, in a description, again, because we have a beginning, middle, and end, every part of that you have three sentences. One sentence you start with a bang and you describe what's happening, the what. Then the second one you describe a sense, and then so we would make these little formulas, if that makes sense, and make our own recipes. And there probably is something like this out there. I don't even know, but just because I knew how Judah is, and because Robert Lomax's books, for me, they didn't seem so structured in that way. We created a structure out of his books, and there may be other books out there that actually give you this kind of structured way of doing it. I don't know. But and maybe because I've only gone through the first book, maybe he does this in books two or three. But we've created our own little thing. And I can't talk so much in this because I said I've only gone through one book because the 11 plus exams I knew he was doing didn't have creative writing. Kent did have it, but Kent only marks your creative writing if you're on the border, if you're appealing. And so I didn't have the time to focus on that with all the breadth of everything and having to score so high. So I'm sorry I can't talk a bit more about that, but I'm going to move on to some others. Okay, this is good. Yeah. So even like for metaphor, oh yeah, so this is how I'd layer it. So every time I'll say, if you have description, the description has to have a metaphor or a simile, or you'd have to use, if it was anything that was not, and we have these things that we had certain rules. if it's not human, can you add personification to make it human? Like we have these certain rules that he knows. So if you're describing, at the moment we're working on using the non-obvious sense to describe something. So if you see an engine, for example, like an engine that's normally you say engine roaring, it sounds boring because everyone says the engine roars. Can you use a different sense? So maybe it might have been the engine was like sputtering, or we were testing things where ignore your first reaction and use another sense to make it a bit more vivid, to make it more interesting. So we have these little rules that we created along the way. But as I said, this one is not as in depth because, as I said, we didn't do creative writing so strongly. And maybe, God willing, once he's passed his O levels and all the other private school, I might do another one in the new year when I've got down creative writing. But yeah, who knows? All right, so I want to kind of move on see some of the other things, right? In terms of what else we use for the maths, for non-verbal, which I know for many people is a big issue. I touched a lot on English, right? Um, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I love that. Winter bearded its teeth. Exactly. So it's bearded teeth. Yeah. So it's so many. There's so many ways where we would have these kind of different kind of strategies. And if I'm honest, we're probably going to have like a good list of 10 or 20 really great metaphors and similes and see like can we weave it in or slightly adapt it to whatever text it is. Just he's got a few in his back pocket. He's got certain words he uses that are kind of really good words. So yeah, it's a hard one. I'm not gonna lie, but as I said, I'm not a tutor, and we just try to do what worked for us. So I'm gonna stop sharing that. The next thing I'd say, the next big resource that we used was um Atom. And I'm going to say what I love about oh, I love that Summer Sean has smile. Atom, and I'm going to show you. So Atom is an online platform that teaches all four things. Um and what I think Atom does best on is helping your child systematically move up, if that makes sense. Systematically move up, or improve, if that makes sense. I'm gonna go through and show you behind. Hold on, let me log into my Atom. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. Now I'm not gonna lie, Atom, at least for I think it's kind of pricey for you know what I mean. Oh, someone's asking for her what Sheena's website. Maybe post that in the Moshi. I think Atom is a little bit pricey, but I only started using Atom in the February of year 5. So that means how many March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So I used it for roughly 6 months. I didn't use it all the time. Because I definitely think going through the breadth of bond books first, I would still recommend. I mean, sometimes you could use Atom from the beginning, potentially, but the only thing I say think about using Atom is purely, I believe, or mostly multiple choice. And I definitely think there was just some benefit of him learning to answer questions directly before moving it in. But I'm gonna share my screen and talk you through Atom, which it still was a major resource for us. And then after Atom, I'm gonna go a little bit through in terms of how you create a schedule for your child and how you can have a schedule that they can stick to, how you make it fluid, and then just go through a bit of Q&A to kind of still be on time. Okay, so let me go through and share with you Atom. And some of you use Atom, but I have a unique, again, just in terms of my background, I work in operations, right? So I am like I work in operations and marketing and business, so nothing to do with this world. But because of the way what my job is, I have to do a lot of systems, if that makes sense. So because I've got to do a lot of systems, I've got to work out complicated. Okay, what's the best way of optimizing things? So because of my job, I think, and not in my job, I think because of the way my brain works, like I can take really complicated things and break them down into actionable steps. And so that's how, even when I get something, that's what I do. It may have a way of using it or a way that it should work. And Atom would probably tell you to use it in a different way than I use it, but it's because of who I am. I know my child, and I know I have skills in turning complicated systems into easy systems. So again, this may not be the way Atom tells you to use it, but this is how I used it to great success. So let me share my screen here and we can talk through this. Atom. So this is Atom. I'm in the parent side of it. So there is obviously the child side that he goes through. This is the parent side where you're in the back end. And what they tell you to do, which is already done this week, they give you these islands that you do every day. We do some subjects every single day. and you get some results. So, for example, he did, I don't know, nets, for example. I don't know how what he's done in here. So he did his nets, and out of the 8, he got 6 of them right, and it'll show you the ones that he's got wrong. On, I don't know, let's what's on here, some synonyms. You know what I mean? Out of how many was there? He obviously, so, and these islands are small little, they're small little kind of questions that you go through, and it'll show you the ones he gets right and he gets wrong. And he does these little islands every day. But that wasn't the main thing. This is what I love to see. If I go to verbal reasoning, it will show you for the school, for example, this is like Whitgift is one of the private schools we're looking at. So I put some of the different schools that he's looking into. So for St. Olave's, it will tell you this is where the average applicant who's applying to St. Olave's, this is where they are, and this is where your child was. So when I first started, and when my child was below it, I had a target. I was like, okay, so you have to be above where, and not in a bad way, but above the other kids because you got to get in, right? And so, and just to be clear, this is not like this is the average performance of children who chose the same target school on Atom, but it's still going to be reflected because parents who typically want their children to go to the school that you may want to go to, and they not all the kids are going to be using Atom, they may be using something else, etc. But they have a very, very, very wide reach in terms of a lot of children use Atom. I remember speaking when they recently redid their how this looks, and I spoke to the company themselves because again I used to work in project management specifically for tech platforms, so they wanted my feedback, and so I've got a lot of insight in, and I'm not affiliated with them anyway. They were just asking parents, hey, do you want to give some feedback, we're about to launch a new interface, and I just happened to jump on a call because I wanted to know a bit more about how the algorithm behind it works, because I had an idea of to use it differently than they want you to. That's what I'm going to share with you, which they don't particularly do. But I think it's a good platform, even the way that you're meant to use it. But I think I have a slightly superior way of using it. So they give you the islands, and the islands are using some sort of algorithm, some sort of AI to generate, to over time give your child harder questions. So my daughter has this. My daughter's in year 3, and the questions they're giving her obviously are much more at her age level, right? And over time. But when he joined at year 5, they knew that your exams are coming up, and they ask you when you're close to the exam, so they know these exams are coming up in 6-7 months. So they're giving you the questions at your level. But what happens is for every single subtopic, right, of for example, you can be in English. English have all subtopics: nouns, verbs, pronouns, and you can see his performance. The performance are at 4 levels. Now I can't remember the name of the one before, but when he first started, he wasn't a master in everything. He was some of them there's needs more practice, good, strong, and master. And so I let him go through the little islands that they gave me for about a month or so to make sure, because if you haven't done enough questions, it will say needs more answers. It won't give you a performance. It says not enough data. So you've got to do it for at least about maybe a month, or go through a certain amount of islands so that every single subtopic. So this is the English one. If I go to punctuation, so you've got grammar, punctuation, reading comprehension, spelling. And so okay, so here you can see one of them in letter strings. He's strong. He's not a master in that one. Vocabulary. And then this is in English. If in verbal, they have the same thing where they have these subtopics and then subtopics in between it. So numbers, patterns, wordplay. So in each individual one, you see how you can go down to the granular level. So if I'm going to maths, and maths obviously you've got a massive remit. You've got algebra. So one of them, it says not enough data because these 2 unknowns is the new thing they've added, and it's just not done enough questions on it. You've got, so each one would have these granular, I don't know what you call them, subtopics within the 4 big main things, right? So a few of them not enough data. And what would happen is when it was going through it, and these simply were not high enough, what you can do as a parent is you can set um you rather than them just giving you islands where, because I found that they were giving him islands of things that he was already a master at, already good at. And I just wanted to concentrate his time on the things that he wasn't a master at. And I wanted to get every single thing to master, right? And so I would go in here to the tests, right? And you can set these little online tests, and you can set not no, so these are the mock tests, not the mock tests. You can set it. Where was it? They recently changed the UI. Oh yeah, so I could simply go down to like any of these ones. So where was one where he wasn't maybe a master at? There was one that said strong. What was it? Yeah. So I can go to this one here, strong. I'll click on it, and I can set a practice just to do on this island. Right. So I'll go to set practice, and you don't want to double it with anything else. You want just this one, and I'll just call it letter strings. and I would set and a due date. So he's going to be doing, maybe I'll set this due date for, what's the date today? Third. So I set the due date for let's say the fourth, 11, 20, 24. So we'll get to schedules, but this is how I am with you. And I'll set him not 5 questions, it'll be 15 questions um on just the letter strings. I won't put in time limit, you don't need to tick the time limit, and I'll say add it to to-do list. So every day when he would come in, he would see that I would have set him the questions based upon what he was not strong at. And I made sure that from need practice, everything moved to good. Then I did all the ones on good and I set them until they got to strong, and then all the ones that were strong until they got to master. And by the time he sat his test, every single thing under every single subsection, he was a master at. And then when I would come to here and I look at my summaries and look at English versus and say Olaf's for us of all the schools that he was looking at the time, because at the moment I've replaced him with private schools that he's applying to, but at a time when it was just different grammar schools, St. Olaf's was the most competitive. So I would make sure that he was above every single one going into it. And he would keep on doing the questions. And what this was good at is because if, for example, you got a question wrong, and I don't know if I can log in from his view. I don't know how to log in from if I go to learn section. Or when he comes to it, you're able to, if you get anything wrong, and you got these little lesson libraries and you can watch a little lesson on something and it would teach him and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't know where exactly what it is, 'cause I don't do this front side, but he did say for every single question he gets wrong, you can watch a video on it on something like that. Um, and so again, this is great, but this was £70 a month. And so as I said, I didn't do this from the beginning. I just did this in the last 6 months. Um, but my daughter now, I have started out on it simply because, and this is where I come back to, everything is one thing, it's either time or money. Because I started this new role. I'm currently, I'm a COO of a kind of business kind of thing, but doing all their operations. So now I have a less time than I had before when I was just with kids at home and stuff, and just working on another business. And so then I had more time to mark the books, because again, you do have to mark the books when you're doing the bond books, where obviously this one itself marks it instantly, if that makes sense. I'm going to quickly come back here just to see if there's any questions, because I was on that screen, I didn't see. Um, but yeah, see, okay, so have you started your daughter on the 11 plus item package or the standard English math? Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. I don't on the atom, and again, if you want, because I do have a referral where if you give, I can refer you. I put your email in, and they give you £30 off. So I think you can get the first month or something. Yeah. So if you want that referral, do let me know. You can private message me, email address, and I'll send you the referral, because it's not a link. You have to kind of said you've got to add somebody by their email, if that makes sense. So if anyone wants that, do let me know. But but um but yeah, so this is the way that I did it, right? In terms of making sure that he was going through consistently. And I didn't put her in the English, math and science, because she's prepping for 11 plus. She's not prepping for English, math and science. So even though she's like year 3, I'm still gonna do, in terms of the resources I'm paying for, it's gonna be 11 plus geared, if that makes sense. Um, what was the main reason you decided to tutor your son versus send them to tuition? There's 2 reasons. One, at that time, so the friends I had who were doing tuition, they would do some. So there's not two type, but there's a variety. Tuition is not it's a sliding scale. You have one-to-one tuition, where somebody comes to see your child one-to-one, maybe once or several times a week, and then you have group tuition. Now, I personally at the time was not in a position to get my child one-to-one tuition in the way I felt he needed. The cost of that at the time, we just weren't in a position to do. And so, whereas now I may do, obviously situations have changed with my daughter, etc. And I think what it was is because my son was brilliant in one area, but the area he was not brilliant in, I saw he was having an emotional response, which I felt as his mother, I would be able to help and handle him. And just to give you an example, one of the biggest things he had was a mental roadblock of, if something doesn't come to me easy naturally, I get upset and frustrated, I don't like it, and it can lead to me being in tears. That was his response to sometimes the frustration of not getting English like that, because maths came to him like that. Like, I remember when my husband showed him how to do a Rubik's Cube. Within a day, he could do a Rubik's Cube in maybe like 10 minutes. Within a week, he could do a Rubik's Cube in maybe like a few minutes. So his mind was wired in a way where he likes things that come easy to him. But when things don't come easy to him, he didn't have a growth mindset around it. And I didn't like that. And so I thought I thought I thought to myself that I need to be able to work with him mindset wise through this journey, not just content wise. And I'm not trying to say that tutors maybe don't do that, but no one knows my son like I know him. And it's just personally, like, Judah's my firstborn, and he's very special to me. I had him after several losses, and I don't know, maybe like he's just like my child of promise. And when I would see him having these emotional reactions, I yeah, I just wouldn't want I just didn't want him to be going through those frustrations with a stranger, because that's a tutor who is, even though after time they may become a bit more, close to XYZ, but yeah, I just didn't want that for him. And so I remember the summer between year 4 and year 5, we went to Wales, and I think we were inspired by obviously Sheena. We went to Wales and we climbed Mount Snowdon. And I'm telling you that for us, I went with not only with my son, I went with my daughter, who was at the time was 6 years old. Or was she 5 years old? I can't remember now. No, she just turned 6, because we went in the summer and her birthday's in June. And climbing Mount Snowdon, and because we were doing it, we did the whole summer. The theme of the summer was a growth mindset. How do something that's hard is a challenge and you can overcome. And I really had to work on his mindset. And again, this is what I mean. That as his mother, I just felt I could do that in a way that somebody else couldn't do it. And we climbed that mountain. When we got to the top of the mountain, I said to him, look at the view from up here, because you can do anything. And I think that's something for us where, again, I just felt like without being able to get a tutor who could do a lot of one-on-one with him, I didn't think we would it would have I didn't think they could do a better job than I could, if that makes sense. Um yeah. Okay, um so let me just come to going through a few of the questions. So yeah, just a round off an atom. Yeah, so that's what we did. Um and so if you come in late, I do apologize. Like I can't go through and just reiterate, you know what I mean? So those who are in the comments helping, I really appreciate that. Um so yeah. Um Let me just go back to, hold on, with my chat. Sorry, the chat's just gone. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Did your son carry on with Atom once you got the subscription? Hold on, that question. Um, Once you got the subscription and stop the bond. Okay, yeah. So just in terms of the Atom, so when I got to the end of a bond, so remember, bond caps out. Bond caps out at, I think it's, you can do bond age 10 to 11, then 11 to 12, I think. But basically, I told you, we did all the bond books. And someone did talk about, I think, the price about, okay, tutor versus books. Yes, I'm buying the books. And so, and again, maybe I was just the tutors I was looking at, the cost of those tutors. Because I remember you're buying the books incrementally. So I'll say I'm buying the books maybe, and maybe if I go, the last thing I want to go into is schedule. So maybe if I show you a little bit about his schedule, because obviously he's going through the books over time. And so, yes, in total, I spent maybe quite a bit on the books. And at the end, I'm spending £70 a month on Atom. But over the years, I do, like, when I speak to my friends who use tuition through the full process from year, I think year 3 or year 4, they definitely spent a lot more than I spent. And I don't think there's anyone I know who had, for the ones we did, who got better results than my son. And I'm not saying it in a kind of way that like what I did is better than tuition. It's just because I think I still spent a lot of time in it. So it's just that at the time I had time, and I didn't want to spend as much on the tuition. But I still think tutors are great. And like I said, for my daughter now, because I haven't got as much time, I may use a tutor. I'm definitely, God willing, Sheena's still doing her classes. Grace is like number one. And I've got my sister has a son who's 10 days younger than her, so both of them, their spots are already mentally saved. But if, for example, because Grace is so much more creative and great in English. She may need more maths help. But then again, her brother, Judah, he doesn't realize that now that pocket money, you want pocket money, you got to tutor Grace. You know what I mean? So yeah. And also the quality of tutors varies so much that some tutors could be really, because the funny thing is I used to go to one Saturday school when I was younger and they were great content wise, but they were not good bedside manner. They didn't really care about mental health and all the things that I personally care about. And remember, I have certain values. And because of the things that I've grown up with and traumas I've grown up with, I'm just not comfortable for my child to be in anyone's company all the time. I'm selective about that. So I want to quickly go to the schedule and then I'm going to go to the mock test and then crunch time into what we did in the very last few weeks that made a massive difference. I'm going to still try and get through all the content and I'll stay and answer the questions, but I'm going to try and get through most of the content I had. 1 year subscription of Atom is about £700 for exam. 1 year subscription of Atom is about £700 for exam prep plus. Yeah, so exactly. So I'll say with Atom, the 700 a year for. My friend of mine, she was paying. I think she was paying at the time 1,000 per term for tutor. No, because she had a tutor several times a week. And I only used Atom. I only paid for Atom for 6 months, and then I stopped. So I've put him back on now, literally a few because we passed the St. Olaf's and then we thought we'll apply for a few more schools, private schools. So he's going to be on Atom until January, and then we're going to stop again. And my daughter, I started on Atom just to get her feel. She liked it. We stopped her for now, and we'll probably re-enroll her. Maybe I'll see how she gets on with the bond books because she's now on bond, and I might put her back on it. So for me, it's a thing we join and we go. And again, I wouldn't be on it with my daughter. She wouldn't be on the top one because she don't need the exam papers, so she'll be on maybe the middle one. But yeah. So how was his scores in terms of percentage? So in terms of his percentage, do you mean this person's asking this here? I can't. Is it Thamil Lassie? How was his scores in terms of percentages? Is this on the Atom? You mean? Do let me know. Um, right. Where's my nearest mountain? Honestly, that mountain. When we climbed that mountain, nothing that summer. When my great daughter would be like, "I can't do this," I'll be like, "Oh, but you climbed the mountain. I thought you climbed the mountain," and she'll be like, "Oh, I can do it." I'm telling you, that mindset wise, it worked. My son and daughter both passed Bexley, Kent, and Newstead Wood, the St. Olave's with high scores. They didn't spend too much time working on books. Girls and boys are very different despite of their personality. Yep, 100%. 100%. They're so different. So true. Okay, Mock and Sam, did you use Atom and Exam Paper? I didn't use Exam Paper Plus at all. I'm actually about to use them for State O Labs Stage 2, but I just didn't use them because I used a different one. I'll go through and share what I did with that. Alrighty, so CGP, I used them a tiny bit. Like I remember I used them because CGP had exam papers. So yeah, so if I go to the exam papers we use CGP exam papers, because I wanted the GL ones, and we used bond exam papers, and we used what's the other one we used, the recent one? It was hold on, I'm just going to my Amazon previous orders, because there's one set of exam papers we bought. And I remember he did like 36 exam papers in 12 days. He did 3 papers a day. This is at the very okay, yeah. So this is the one, the GL. Let me show you this one here. Let me share my and he said this one was one which was a really big difference for him. Yeah, so Exam Paper Plus, again, they're good, but they're not totally difficult. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to show you this exam papers and I'm going to show you how it fit into the schedule, because we had a school schedule when he was in school. We had a holiday schedule when it was summer holidays. So I'm going to show you these in tandem. So this is one that we used. And the reason I'm showing you this particular one, because this relates to one specific schedule that we had, and it will kind of make it very clear. And we use this at near the very end. I know some tutors will say for the last 2 weeks, take some time off, don't do anything. I do not like, everyone's different. I don't recommend that. I'm like, how are you? It's like you're gonna run for a race, and for the last 10 meters, you just ease off the gas. I don't know. We didn't do that. We had an analogy that we'd always say is that if you're trying to catch a bus, you sprint for the bus. You sprint as hard as you can. And if you catch the bus, it's God's blessing. If you don't catch it, it's God's protection. But either way, you sprint. So you've got no regrets that you didn't run hard enough. So, and when you sprint and you dip at the end. Like you see the athletes, they dip their head at the very end to make sure they win. So I was like, we're not coming off the sprint line. So let me. Someone's mentioned Khan Academy. I have seen Khan Academy. Hold on, which I think is good. But Khan Academy, it just wasn't specific for 11 plus, and I wanted something specific. Remember, I was like, this is like a game. I know it sounds bad, but you got to play the game. You got to know how to like. I wanted my son to pass 11 plus. Yes, I wanted to learn and things like that, but I specifically needed to pass the 11 plus and pass it high. So yeah. So let me quickly share this here, my screen. Share screen. So this is what I did use for, because again I'm doing GL, and this they had a bond, they had a like a pack. It was £100 I think for 36 papers. So I said yes, there were definitely costs involved, and maybe I don't know, maybe you get all these things free when you use a tutor. I don't know, but I liked the flexibility and the tailoring. So it's not even just a cost thing, because when I'm thinking about how much I spent, I still think it would have been cheaper than a tutor, but it wasn't simply a cost thing why I didn't use a tutor. I just knew that I wanted to have a flexible, customizable, mental health friendly approach. And my son would sometimes tell me, Mum, this feels a bit too much. I would relax his schedule when he would like sometimes we'd fly part through it, and like we were able to ebb and flow it. We had a really, really, really like one of the most terrible bereavements in February earlier this year, and we had to take some time out. A really close aunt of his, my sister-in-law passed away so suddenly and dramatically, and we had to take some pauses, and we were just able to work around our lives. So for me, that's why I would still say again, if you have a really good tutor in the area that's really recommended, and you can afford it and etc., go for it. But so many of friends I know that they use tutors, you still need to do something else. So I'm not really advocating this is what you do and don't use a tutor. I want to be very clear. I would still recommend this and the tutor as long as you get on with a tutor. Like for me, I feel like for me, Sheena, it was kind of like an English tutor for us. Do you know what I mean? And it's even group tuition, and I loved it. So actually it's free. Oh my goodness. So if you came late, you haven't got the details. Look out in the comments. You need that. So I have nothing against tuition. If you get a good one, etc. But what I would hesitate is put all your eggs in the basket of a tutor, and they don't gel with your child, or your child is stressed with it, and that kind of thing. But everyone's different. I mean, I care massively about my child's mental health. For my parents, it wasn't even a thing they thought of because they come from a completely different generation. So, and yeah, it is what it is. I'm not here to judge anyone's parenting style. I'm just showing you what is for me, if that makes sense. A combination, yeah. So these are the practice papers we did. They were really good. And I asked my son about them, and he said that he felt like they were really reflective. Like in hindsight, they were really reflective of the questions he got for GL. Um, he said that even some of these papers were harder than than the Kent test itself. That's why if I show you the results, so this comes to the schedule, I'll show you the results he got on every single one of these papers. And he was saying that these were even some harder than the Kent one he did. So this is why I would recommend this. I'm not saying if there's anything wrong with Exam Paper Plus. I have no idea. I didn't use them. I just went with this. Um, and I also did all the bond had some exam papers, and CGP had exam papers, and I did all of those as well. But I'm going to show you the schedule of this because of this one, I kind of documented it quite well because it was the last few weeks, and we made a little Google. Hold on, I need to find what's the name of this one here. It was. Hold on, it was week schedule. Was this one here? So we had several different schedules. Hold on, give me a second. It was final sprint. Okay. And my son's like an athlete, so a lot of analogies we use like sprinting, and because that's something he's super into, if that makes sense. So if I share my screen, share the entire screen, um, share. Okay, so this is an example of those exam papers I showed you. I hope you can kind of see this. I don't know how to make it bigger. I don't know how to zoom in here. There must be a way. Hold on. View, zoom in. Okay. So what I didn't see what it was. This? No, hold on. If you, what did it tell me the function was? Zoom in. Oh, it's shift that and okay. So shift this and this. Okay, so what would happen is So the different packs. So this is pack one, paper one. And I would also give him a time where he'll start it and he has to mark it. This time I'm sorry, I was a bit tired of marking it. I'm like, hey, you're smart enough, or you can mark your own exam papers and learn from them. And so obviously when he was younger, I would mark them. So even though it was a summer holiday, he would wake up, and he wakes up super early anyway. He's like 6:37, or even on a holiday, he wakes up at the same time. So 9 a.m. you have to do a paper, and then you mark the paper, then you have a break, and then no, you do two papers, and then after that you have a lunch and then another one. I want you to get them out early in the day because that means in the afternoon we'll go out to play. He watches TV, he does all that good stuff. But he does three papers in a day, and sometimes he wouldn't stick to the schedule, etc. And then him ticking it is when he's done them. So, but what would happen every day when he does it, he would have to put what he did. So you can still see English was always something that was slightly lower, you know what I mean? This is a 77 compared to a maths where he's getting 100% in some of them, and do you know what I mean? Things like that. And so he would go through and he would write it in. So after the first set of these, I was like, dude, this is not gonna get you into the schools we need. So like, and I would never say it in a way because I always wanted him to be like, I wouldn't want him to feel like bad for when he didn't do as well. So I would say, hey, Judah, and I used to try to put a positive spin because he would get upset sometimes when he didn't do well. I was like, hey, Judah, there's no point in getting upset because remember what we're doing here. This is warm up. This is practice. This is not the real thing. But the good thing about practice is that you can learn how to get better. So I was super conscious again, just to not make him feel like a failure because this is still amazing. Like I'm still doing really well, right? So he would go through, he would mark it, he would learn from it, and we had another spreadsheet where he would write down all the silly mistakes he would make. One thing about these tests, you can make so many silly mistakes. So when he would learn his common silly mistakes, for example, he may be marking the wrong, putting the answer to the wrong question because of the way the answer sheets are separate. So then we had a little kind of game. It's like we do like A. So you look at the question, you say A. On paper, you would say to yourself A and make sure you're writing the wrong one. And you double check. I'm answering the question on this question and I'm marking A. So we would have a little checks and balances. Then the next set of, so next 4 days, because he goes through and does three papers a day, and he'll fill them in. Okay, this one is getting better. Here's giving me the reason why it's low. Because I'm like, oh. And then the next one he did 91. So you can see over time. So the next set, and he's getting better. Then he does another set of them, and he does them. And this is the final set he done here. Where this one I think he ran out of time, but most of them he's in the 90s, 80s, and he's just doing really well, right? And so this is like an example schedule he would have. But I want to kind of go through and show you a schedule of like when he was in hold on, if I go to where's my schedules? Like what's this one here? This is this kind of schedule where um what was he on there? This is okay. I think this is a half term, 6 a year. No, this is not the one I want to show you. I want to show hold on. Where is my schedules? Hold on, give me a second, guys, and let me find it. In terms of his daily kind of schedules that he would have. Hold on, if I do search. Where are we? Search, oh yeah. Schedule. Okay, so this is the schedule. And let's make it bigger. Share my screen. And I'll come back to the questions in the comments in a second. But this is an example of a schedule he would have when he was going to school, for example. No, this was school. He was on holiday, so he'd wake up. He would read his one chapter of one of Sheena's books in a day. Have breakfast. He does works out with his dad. He showers, gets ready. Then he does some vocabulary flashcards. These didn't work that way. He had some flashcards. I bought CGP flashcards, but trying to learn words out of context wasn't the greatest. But we did it for a while. Then he'll do English and maths assessment. He'll have a bit of a break. He'll do verbal and non-verbal. Have a 30 minutes break. He'll do maths. It might seem kind of regimented, but it just kept him on flow. And you know what I mean. And we still made sure that because this was a time where I'm trying to think of the date because this is not the date of this is 6th November 2023. This is like a year ago when we were going through it, and I think we were on maybe a half term, and I really wanted him to get into um a lot of content and really going through. And then we'll have some breaks in the evening. He'll play some games. He does taekwondo. He's been doing it for years. He's got nearly a black belt now, so he always wanted to continue his sports, which is taekwondo and athletics. So I still would let him continue doing that. and we would go through and do some assessments. So this is like an example on holiday. I'm also going to show you one, for example, when he was on school time as well, and we just kind of worked it around, um, yeah, around his schedule kind of thing. So hold on, if I stop sharing here and find that other schedule, because that one I think kind of talks it through. Hold on, kid schedule. So I made so many different schedules over time. So um, what did I call it? Let's see, it might be called Judah's work. That's Judah's silly mistakes list. Work schedule. Where's the school one? Hold on. If I type in something like non-verbal, I'll find it. Let's have a look. Hmm. I think what I might have done, I might have overwritten the file with one of his holiday ones. Let's have a look. What's work what time? Give me a second to the timetable. Let's have a look. Judah. Because one I created, I think I'd written over it. Well, I created a schedule around his school day as well. And the way I would do it is that essentially days where he would go to he has taekwondo twice a week and he has running club, then he would only do like an hour, hour and a half. And then days when he didn't have anything, so he comes home from school, school's super close, he'll be home at 4 o'clock, and he would do like 3 hours. He'll do like, you know, because these assessment papers usually take about 50 minutes. So he'll do like 3 hours of work, and then we'll still have time for dinner and playing some games. And he just kind of happily did it. He just kind of happily went along. I say happily. There was sometimes like when he would like something would happen or a friend would come over and he wouldn't do it. But one thing with my schedule, what I did is that I only, especially the school schedules, I set it around. He would have it all the time, but it wouldn't have anything on the half term or Christmas holiday. Only up until the very last, obviously summer holiday, he had work. But what it would mean is that everything that he kind of got behind on, he'd catch up in those holiday. And so that's it. Someone said, "What's your husband's occupation?" So he'll say, "My husband." I do think he inherited his love for maths, because my husband. The reason why I met my husband through maths, I was I was failing maths, and my husband was doing maths, further maths, physics and statistics. When I was in college, so I met my husband. I was 16. We've been together 20 years now, and he did a mathematics degree, first class degree in mathematics, and now he runs his own tech business. So yeah, it definitely inherited my husband's love for maths. He plays chess with him, all that kind of stuff. I'm much more creative, and my daughter is, I would say, much more like me. But yes, so okay, yeah, so my daughter, so someone says help. My daughter has a love hate relationship with Harry Potter. Oh my daughter has a love hate with Harry Potter. Love the story, but it's easy scared. Just comes downstairs totally freaked out. So I don't think the kind of the ones are really scary. Again, my husband, like Judah, he would tell me sometimes the like certain things that would scare him, and this was never like one of them. So I don't think they are particularly scary. He didn't find it so. He just found it was like adventure. He found it really intriguing. Um, so yeah. But I think there's somewhere, I can't remember what it is, but you can read a synopsis. I think if you go to Kindle, you can get a synopsis of you can kind of look at a synopsis of the book or something, and you can get like even I think it's a whole chapter or something like that. You can do. Oh, okay, yeah. So look, yeah, she the author of the book in the comments, she's put that there because yeah, I remember you were able to read it and stuff like that. Um, yes. Dum dum dum. Yeah, so we're saying yeah. So again, I'm not big on screen time. Just as a parent, so because of my husband's in the tech business, and I'm really big on mental health. And I said I know some parents. I know screen time is so easy, and again, I'm not saying this in a judging way, but they have it has been noted that screen time and social media for children is as addictive as cocaine. and not in a good way. I mean, sorry, there's no good way of, of cocaine addiction. Um, and so I personally am not the biggest fan of screen time. Not that you can't use the screen for things, but I just have limited screen time. So I do let them watch TV. They don't watch a lot of TV. Um, we play a lot of games as family. We love board games. The kids absolutely love it. We do a lot of things, and we do things like Sundays, like movie night. So we just had like a little movie night before jumping on this call. So yeah, I just don't know. Um, Okay, so how much study? Okay, honest. So this is one thing I my son always said. He didn't want his weekends to be very heavy on study. So this is what we did. We would in the weeks we would do all of the bond books and that kind of stuff. The weekends we had obviously Sheena's classes, and that funny thing, he actually looked forward to Sheena's classes, so he didn't see that as work unless maybe a friends were around or something like that. And I'm be honest, I'm not like even then. One thing I want to teach my children is commitment to a cause. So for example, he had his friend around one day, and I said to him, "Oh, you got Sheena's class?" And he's like, "Oh, Miles was around." I said, "Oh yeah, Miles will sit in the class as well." Miles is the same age. He may not do an 11 plus. You and Miles can sit on the call. And so Miles was there with him on the call with him. I like to teach him the fact that, like, if you say you have a goal, you work towards that goal, and you have to have a mature approach around it. And life can't just be all about what I want to do, what I feel like doing all the time. No, life is about. And I would sit him down at different intervals. And my son has said to me, "Mom, I think I want to be either a mechanical engineer." um I said, okay, engineering, to do an engineering degree at a good school, you have to have 3 A's or 3 A stars at the best schools. And he's like, yeah, I want to go to either MOT or I want to go to Oxford. And he has a big goals for himself. And I would sit him down. I don't talk to my child as a child. We just have conversations where I'm honest with him and say, oh, I said, I think you could do it, but it takes a lot of dedication, it takes a lot of hard work. You know what I mean? You'll be able to play your games, but like only probably on the weekends. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, we would have these calls, and I feel like you have to reason with your child and make sure that that they're on the same page with you, that you're not dragging them. Because I don't want my son to be years ahead in therapy. Like, my mom pushed me down this, and I'm not doing that. Um, how are you teaching them what they don't understand in the books, bond assessments, and yeah? So what you do is, so what they don't understand. So I'm going to be honest. Everything they didn't know in maths was my husband. I can't lie. Everything he didn't know in, yeah, maths. So maths and non-verbal, my husband did, because that's obviously him. And English, obviously there was Sheena. And obviously for me, like, I'm quite good at English, and the type of things he didn't know in English was more inference, comprehension, which as an adult, for me, obviously the English is my first language, and I understand. If I'm honest, if English isn't your first language, I can see you extremely struggling with what they expect you to know at 11 plus. Because one thing I say about the English language, just in general, is so nuanced, and it's so, like, English language, I say, is like the English people, in terms of, like, they're not, things are not always straightforward. There's a lot of, so you know how something there could be, they could infer things. They could be saying something to you but mean something else. And in certain cultures, they don't have that. Like, if I mean, in the Nigerian culture, they will tell you what they think of you. There's none of this smiling in your face, and like that two face isn't even a thing in our culture. Someone doesn't like you, they will tell you that to your face. It's just culturally. Whereas I think in English, there's culture of being polite, and the nuanced things, and the kind of the different class system. It's just a very different culture. And I think that the English language reflects that. So I do think, you mean, it may be quite difficult. But for me, I was able to just help him. They give you the answers, and the good thing about Bond gives you the answers and explanation around the answers. Some things which I don't like, they just give you answers. Some books only give you answers. But with the Bond books, they always give you, apart from, I think, no, even in the non-verbal, they give you the explanation. They'll say it's this one because these other things, ignore them, they're a red herring. It was really the fact that the shape was turned 3/4 or whatever. Um, so that's that. So I'm just making. I think I'm just going through my list of the things I wanted to cover, and then I'm just going to go through and answer any questions. So resources I used, check. Create the schedule and how I created my schedule. Mindset and okay, yeah. So the mindset and confidence building. So yeah, the one thing I'd say, and this is, I would say that mindset wise, and again, I've shared this already. I'm a Christian. That's my faith, my belief, and I bring my children up in that. You may have a different faith or a different belief system or something, but you have to. I believe you have to help your children think about things in a way where they're able to hold on to some level of, and when I say faith, I don't mean faith within the religion faith. I mean faith is in terms of developing I can do this, developing systems and mantras of I can do this, right? So I would say, for example, I would give my son affirmations to say. Now, again, as a Christian, affirmations may be rooted in our beliefs, but affirmation could just be like, I am smart and I can work things out, or I don't get things right the first time, but I know I can try again. So he would have these affirmations that I would get him to say to himself. Like, working on the mindset of your child is such a big thing. And if you haven't got one, I said, okay, but Christianity is still open for folks to give it a try. But again, I joke, but you want to think about what am I teaching my child value wise, as to help them succeed not only in 11 plus but in everything. And I think that's one of the big things for me. We worked so much on this mindset and confidence, and it wasn't just about the 11 plus. Like, I remember I used to call myself his study buddy. So I say, okay, I'm taking my mum hat off, I'm putting my study buddy hat on. So when I'm helping him, I was helping him in a different type of way so that he could be honest with me and not have, because sometimes we don't realize how we've created a certain roles with our children. And sometimes, I'm sorry to say it, guys, but sometimes it's how we're parenting which sometimes can get our children worked up in a way that it's not that they can't do the work, but they're either scared of getting things wrong, or they don't think they can be open with you about how they're really feeling about the process. The process is not easy, and they don't have the confidence around it. There's many different things that I feel that as to why I say this process isn't for every child. Um, and I say, yeah, that's just the way I am and the way I'm built. For me, yeah, I just I don't have to explain it. Like, for me, my child being a kind person, being a polite person, loving others, being tolerable, tolerant to everyone's beliefs. Like, those are such more higher values for me. So I make sure that as I'm going through this process, we're working on those values, as well as we do that. So yeah, so that's, I think I'm just going through the last of my notes and then I'll just answer some questions. Probably give it maybe another 10 minutes and then kind of wrap up. Um, Final question, just again, in exam practices, I would say you want to make sure, this is a big thing. Atom and a lot of those programs, they may have exam papers that are either online and in person is not the same. Online answering questions, and as soon as he switched to the paper ones, he was slower, and we had to work on speed. And working on speed, because remember, you're having to read a question in one booklet, mark it down in another booklet, and make sure you're doing the right thing. So all I'd say there is just practice them doing paper exams. And obviously, because of the fact that most of you are on here, your child's in year 3, 4, or 5, there's no point of me going through deep exam techniques until to the time. But yeah, I just say practice with paper. With paper. What else was on my notes to share? Test time management. Um, and just in terms of, like, yeah, thinking about the child's schedule, you're gonna have to know like how much a child can do. Some children have a really short attention span. Like, what is your child incentivized by? I personally, I mean, I know some people would do like there's a carrot and a stick, and I always think in this situation you want to go with a carrot route. Child being punished, or child being, if you don't do this, you don't get that, and punishing. Again, I'm not here to teach you how to parent. I just feel like, and you may even get them the results that you think you want them to, but the relationship with you and your child, I definitely know whereas I got good grades out of the stick with my parents, and it just hasn't left the best relationship between us, because it, you know what I mean. Um, so 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 yeah, so that's the concert. I mean, a little bit over time, but that's content done. Of what I wanted to share. I'm trying to think of anything else particularly. Oh, one other thing. There's another platform I did use. I do want to mention them as well. I only used it at the very end because a friend of mine who is a teacher, she has access to this platform, so she gave us free access. And it was a platform called Chukra. Hold on, Chukra. And actually, when I look at Chukra in comparison to Atom, and this is from, I'm not gonna lie, I am a design snob. And what I mean is, like, I love platforms that are really nice and have a great UI and look really cute and all that kind of stuff. And this just didn't have it. So initially I was a little bit like, not anti it. I just wasn't as keen on it. But Julia actually told me nearer the end. So I'll show you. This is Chukra's platform. And if I sign in, I think I'm signed in. This if I go to his where he is his sections, um, you can hold on, it's just loading. And you see the UI. It's not as sexy as Atom. It's not as like look at Atom. Atom moves like much smoother in terms of the lesson library. It looks funny. They've got little jokes here every day. It's just a much. I just like this as a platform more. Oh, and actually, one great thing about Atom is they have past exam papers for you can choose for any school. So, for example, if I'm looking at, for example, all mock tests for St. Olave's, and it will change every single one. So there's unlimited St. Olave's mock. I would say add it to a to-do list, and they're going to change the questions. So these 56, 7 questions, they will regenerate with that algorithm questions at a difficulty level of St. Olave. So he did so many of these ones. And then if I was doing, let's say, Dartford grammar, or we again Dartford grammar. For this one, for example, where they may not have the specific school, because Dartford Grammar comes under the Kent 11 plus, so I'll be able to do the Kent, and I can do the Bexley, for example. So Bexley 11 plus. So I just mainly focused on this, and I set him. He did, I think, make like between 1 and 3 exam papers every single day when he was in school. When he was on holiday, he would do 4 papers a day, where like one verbal, non-verbal, every single day, and I'll just switch it up. One day it could be the Bexley day, one day could be a Kent day, one day could be a St. Olave's day. Because they were the 3 11 pluses we would do it, and we'll just cycle through them. Now that I'm obviously doing independent schools, I can say, for example, Whitgift. I want to see their exam, and they're going to give me the Whitgift, as well as I can do some independent school and stuff like that. Or I can just do ISEB if you're training doing for the ISEB, and they would read you. I want to be very clear. It's not that they only have this many. If every single time I select ISEP English, if I did it 10, 20 times, it would regenerate me different questions every time. So this was great for the exam prep. But the reason why I still did some physical paper ones, like the one I showed you here on Amazon, was because I needed him to have the paper practice exactly how the exams are done. But most of the exam practice he'd had was just using Atom and going through these probably for several months even. Now with Chukra, again, he did something. He's done only 2,000 questions there. He did about 41 different tests. And these tests here, they're still scoring high. This is a numerical, non-verbal, English verbal, so 93, 90, this one 89. So he said these were more difficult than the Atom exam papers that he was doing there. It's just that it wasn't as nice an experience to use. And if I'm honest, going forward, but the thing about Chukra, they didn't have, for example, I can put my child's age as younger, or I don't believe they did. Whereas Atom, you can use it from a very young age, if that makes sense. So that's what I don't. I think Chukra, I would only use when your child's in year 5, if that makes sense, or at the later stages for the exam. And they still have the ones where you can go through the questions, what they call it the question mix. So this is showing all the question types he does. Green is verbal. Some of them they do a mixture. So he does tons of different question types. And you can go through the different topics and say, okay, verbal reasoning, I want to go to a subtopic, and within here, I want to go to another subtopic. You can drill down. It just the UI of this and telling me my accuracy level, it would just seemed harder to work the system. So I still prefer Atom, but he did say the questions in here were a bit harder. So at the end, when we stopped using Atom for a bit, when we exhausted everything to master, and I got free access to this, I use this as well. So this is also a good platform, and I want to give it its credit. I think it might be cheaper. I don't know how much it is, because again, I have an account that's been given to me by a friend of mine. Um, so I think that was it in terms of my content wise. Oh, I do want to touch upon you. I would definitely 1,000,000% recommend booking at least one mock exam in person, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to remember now, he sat 2 in-person mocks. One was with the company, the Shukra company. I booked it through them, and another one was with um what's it called? It was with the with Atom. and he said they were really good for giving him just. So that means when he came to the real exams, he had no nerves, which was really eerie. Like I was nervous, he had no nerves because he sat there. People could be coughing. Some people, he said one exam, people got up and left, but he wasn't moved or distracted or anything because he had that experience before. If anybody wanted to contact me, hold on, let me put my email in the chat. Now I may not be able to get back to everyone, or I may not be the greatest at getting back quickly. But if you want to contact me, if you want to get access to Atom, I think I get a referral where I can give you £30 off. I think I get it. I'm not affiliated with them anyway. It's just the inbuilt referral scheme. So just let me know, and I can do that. Now, obviously, this is my way of trying to help and share and give back. So, obviously, many requests of can I have this or customize or give me a template of all this kind of stuff. Where I can, I will. Where if it will take me time, I'm going to be honest. I might add a fee just because for my time. But this was my way of trying to give back. So that's that. So any questions? There is a Q&A. So if you have a particular question, you can put it in. I think there's a little Q&A session, or to put it in because now I feel that like so many questions have been asked up. If you post it in the actual Q&A specific place, then I can see those questions and go through them. I can give a little bit of time. What time is it now? Yeah, another 10 minutes. Just go through any questions that you may have specifically. Somebody asked a question in the question: how many hours do you spend per week with the learning? I said at the moment now so it's a bit different now because past the main 11 pluses. This week and next week he's going to do a bit more up into the run of his St. Olaf's. So he's probably going to do again back to his days he has taekwondo. He'll do an hour because taekwondo takes up 2 hours, and then obviously there and back. So it's like a good 2.5 hours of his evening is taken up by going to taekwondo. But days he hasn't got taekwondo, he'll probably do about 3 hours in the evening. Is there record? I think this has been recorded. So I'm using a kind of new platform because Zoom has this kind of limit of 40 minutes and all that kind of stuff. So I have access to this particular platform called AirMeet. I need to double check after the call if I have the recording. I hope I do. School timetable. Yeah. So we might again, as I said, after school, what and if this is what I did, and obviously you can create um okay, perfect. You can create your own how would I say it schedule. This is what I think about. Get the books, and I'll share this timetable again. I got all the books of the bond. So let's give an example. Bond books. Imagine your child is starting year 4. So if your child is starting year 4, your child should be hold on, if the grace should be, I think you're 8 years old when you start year 4. So I would start with the bond books. Let's say 8 to 9, and that means you've got four of those bond books of 8 to 9, and each bond book will have. And let me share this because I'll show you what I mean. This is how you can create your own. And if somebody really needs help, and again, I need to double check. Like, I don't know how long it'll take me. And maybe for if I have spare time on the weekend, I'll have to see if I can show this in a bit more detail. But let me just kind of break down how I create this timetable. If I have, for example, this is at the time when he was 10 years old, right? So the different books he had. There's the Bond math book for age 10 to 11, book 1. Inside this book, there are 24 assessments, and each assessment takes 30 minutes, right? So if I know his term starts on this day, I would go through and say, and I want to kind of cycle through each day. I would say on, let's say, Monday, because I know this has taken him 30 minutes to do, but the English takes 50 minutes, and the non-verbal takes 45 minutes, and then the verbal takes 45 minutes. So when I'm looking at this time here, my 50 minutes, my 45, 45 is an hour and a half, plus 50, that's nearly 2 hours, 20 minutes, and plus another 30, so 2 hours, so nearly 3 hours, right? For him to do all of this. So he could do 4 of these on a day where he has no taekwondo. Day has taekwondo, I might give him one, the English one, and I would just cycle through. So one day he may do all of these ones. On a Monday, he has nothing. Tuesday has taekwondo, I'll give him just English. That means Wednesday, I'll give him the other 3, and then I'll go into the next, maybe book 2, because remember, there's book 1, book 2, and I just cycle through all the books until he finished it. Sorry. So obviously in book 1, he's got 24 assessments. So one day he'll do assessment 1, they'll do assessment 2, and I would just go through those books like that. And what I would do, because I wanted him to be on average in the same, how would I say it? Maybe do I have it here? Yeah, this will give you an example. If I'm going through it here, if I have on a Monday where he's doing here was CPG TGP, but I would get him to do, for example, two maths or three maths in a week, where he'd only do one of non-verbal because this book only has 6 assessments, where this one has 24. Right. So he would be doing, because I want him to kind of stay on the same, all of finish all of book one, then go on to book two, then go on to book three. I would just get him to do more assessments in a week of whatever book had more assessments than others. So the English ones, they take twice as long, but you have, half, more than less than half of these ones. So in a week, he may do one English, he'll do maybe like 3 or 4 maths, he'll do one non-verbal and maybe 2 verbal, if that makes sense, to try and keep it even, if that makes sense. And yeah, I just kind of worked it through like that. And I think I even used ChatGPT. I think I used ChatGPT at the time. I put it all in there and say, hey, ChatGPT, I need a timetable, because, like, I was telling it, my son does this. He has this type of schedule. He does this. He likes to work out. He likes whatever he likes to do. And he's reading this book, sci-fi. And again, I said he's reading the book. The book has this many chapters, 23 chapters. He's read 9 of them so far. But he needs to read. He needs to start this one, and then I would put in, he has to start with this book and he has to finish this one, and the term has this many days, etc. And I would go through all of this and be kind of breaking it down for him. So um yeah, so that's kind of how I kind of did it. It's hard to kind of explain, but at the time I just simply went through. um okay, let me go for I'm just going for the questions now, so not the chat per se, and I've got a perfect. When do you sit at Mokozam? You sit at Mokozam, I'll probably say in the 6 weeks before, like in the 6 week holiday before, or like that last year. So year 5, I think from the Easter holiday of year 5. Thank you so much, Guy. Okay, let me go through. It's a lot of work, guys, but this is what it takes. And this is one of the things I would say, if you think to yourself, wow, this is a lot, you got to think about what they're doing in grammar schools. Something like St. Olave's, which is extremely super select. Dartford Grammar, extremely select. There's no point of your child getting into a grammar school and they're always just above water, nearly drowning. I wanted my son to comfortably get in, so that I knew that he would be able to handle the pressure. Because remember, those schools are pressure. I know of people who, your child starts failing in these schools, they kind of like remove you. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. Okay, so I've asked that question. Marcus answered. Next, did your son ever lose interest? He did lose interest, but then I'm not gonna lie, you got to bribe them. We took him to Paris, to the Olympics, when I mean, and I remember that trip there, because it wasn't a great time for us. Like, as I said, we had a bereavement early in the year. But when he said, Mom, is there any way I just want to be able to see the stadium? Because my son is a Bromley champion for long jump, and he just wants to see it at the Olympics. He loves athletics. He does cross country. He plays cricket. He does taekwondo. He loves sports. And he was like, Mom, I would. And we were watching it at home. Like, we bought the tickets so last minute. Like, we bought the tickets when the Olympics was on. And I remember he was doing all his 11 plus work and then watching the Olympics at night time. We let him stay up a little bit to watch it. And he was like, if I could go to the Olympics. And saw he was so consumed and not stressed, but there was a lot of 11 plus work. I spoke to my husband about it. And he was like, oh, but tickets may be crazy. And I said, let me go and check. And I saw there were some tickets being resold. And it wasn't for any great races, but it was for the decathlon. But I knew the decathlon included long jump. And we literally went to Paris for like 2 days, just, you know what I mean? And we went there and he loved it. So we encouraged him with bribes. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm so blessed with a child who doesn't want for much. He doesn't like really want really expensive things. He just likes a good old game on his Nintendo. He's just like I'm blessed with a great child. It doesn't take a lot to like, sometimes a bribe was like taking him to his favorite restaurant. Like that like, he's so easily happy. And so we just bribed him, and not bribed, but you know what I mean, and things like that. So next question is yeah, so it's recording. I'll double check when I finish. School timetable, yeah, but answer that. Who did he ask when he had a question about without a tutor? Oh, it was me. It was me and his dad. Every question he had, and that's, I'm gonna be honest. So just to be honest, my husband and I, we are very even though we didn't come from a very privileged background. I went to an inner city London school. My husband the same, but we worked hard. So my husband's even dyslexic, but he's really good at maths. So maths and non-verbal, my husband gets really like that. He's not the greatest in English and stuff. And for me, I was like kind of one of these all-round kind of straight A students. I did economics at Royal Holloway University. Worked in investment banking. Worked in I was confident in the self tutoring, but also I'm going to be honest. There were sometimes I took a photo of the question and asked ChatGPT, and he gave me the answer. And for me, Chat is a he. His name's Henry. That's what I called him. And so you know, ChatGPT would answer the questions. I would Google like with AI now. I literally get questions, and although it's not always accurate, like ChatGPT is not great on nonverbal. But then I made sure that a lot of the resources I had, it had came with explanations. So the Atom has thorough explanations and videos for everything you've got wrong, and the Bond books have answers as well. So that's what I did with that. Can you create spreadsheets? Can you create spreadsheets on Excel? You can. I just use Google Sheets because everything's linked to a cloud. I don't have the Microsoft, so yeah, you can do. Um, the 11 plus syllabus. Any websites that you recommend? So there's not a particular syllabus. I'll say Atom was the most thorough that I saw. It broke down every single like subtopic of question, but it's not a syllabus of you have to learn X. It will just say noun. It will just say what's in it, if that makes sense. So again, if you want to try out, or again, I can send you my referral for Atom. I said I have no affiliate with them. It's just that I like the way they break it down. I posted my email is in the chat, so you can see that. Next question: could you share the link of the session with Sheena, please? Oh yeah, yeah. So if once I get off this call, because this is the first time I've done this like through here, but I do believe this platform is actually really good on the back end. Obviously, yeah, you guys can't see it. Much better than Zoom, in my opinion. Um, but yeah. So I'll double check that. What resources did you use for reasoning? Yeah, so for reasoning, I didn't have anything separate for specific for reasoning. I just used the Bond books. Then I used Atom very thoroughly, and then it was exam papers. So that's what I did. Can you please share the link for Sheena's free training? Okay, so I know she put it in the chat before. I don't know if Sheena's still here. Because the first thing I'll say obviously is getting the books, and I think this is a some people may not like it, but I think like why would you want to join the training if you've not bought the books? So the first thing you need to do is get the books, and your child has to read the books. And not all of them. A lot of times she'll say you have to read up to certain points so you can follow along. Because what she does in the lessons is you're following along the story, and then she's going through and doing the inference and all that kind of stuff. And if you're lost in the story, I can't explain. You're not getting the same out of the books. Like the way Judah's getting things, even me listening to it, because I didn't read the books, although I can understand the concept, you're not following and really understanding, and especially the literary devices and how you're able to like link things. Okay, the story, the mood of the story was like this, so this is the way that authors write and all that kind of good stuff. You have to read the books. So I have the link here for the site to get the books. I think the link to just students community, I think maybe if you get the books, maybe there's an email there that somehow that comes through, but I definitely know it's up in the chat somewhere. Yeah, so okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I'll get Sheena the recording, and then she can share that. Perfect. Okay, back to the Q&A. I just want to make sure I get through these here. Can you share the link of Sheena's? Okay, that's the one you asked. What best time to do mocks if the actual exam is in September? Yeah, I'll say from Easter, because you want to get the mocks will help you get a litmus test of how well your child is doing. So I did one around the Easter time, then I did one in the summer holiday, maybe like somewhere in the summer holiday. So like this is what, because you still need to have time to work if they're not doing that great in the mocks. But the second mock he did much better. I think he got 100% in the maths in his mock, but obviously in his English was still quite good and high. So I was super confident going in, but I can't lie, I didn't think he would get like 100%. Not like he's not capable. I mean, he's in bed now, so if you see he's just such a sprightly boy. But I just thought like, who gets 100%, right? I'm a straight A student, and I don't think I ever got 100% in any tests. So yeah. That was answered. How did you also fit in school homework? Yeah, again, my this is part of the problem. My son's school doesn't have homework, so this is the reason why I felt I had to do so much with him, because they don't do homework. How did you teach the topics they hadn't covered in school? Yeah, well, most of the topics they didn't cover in school. So, but the funny thing is that there was a CGP book. Hold on, there was one CGP book that kind of taught you everything in a kind of light way. It was, hold on, if I go to my orders and I don't see, and I go to, is it CGP or CPG? I always get this wrong way around. I think it's CPG. Yes, because it's coming up with nothing. CPG. No, it's CGP. Sorry, guys. We'll get there. Um, and then hold on, if I show you this, share my screen. Your order. So it was, where was it? This one here. So you got the verbal reasoning, complete revision and practice. English, complete revision and practice. Non-verbal. So these books here, they're the ones that give you, and I say complete revision because yeah, it kind of covers all the topics. But he kind of, I can't explain it, but as you're going through the CGP, I mean the bond books, it's like teaching you in this as they're asking you in the assessments. He kind of learned what they wanted from him just by doing the questions. So I know it's going to sound really weird, but we only went through this, if you see, October 2023, and he'd already been doing the bond books for over a year. So yeah, we didn't actually go through and take some time to learn the content. He just started off with the bond books. Even like my daughter now, she's done no content. The I can't say the bond books, as you're going through it, it's teaching you, if that makes sense. So yeah, so that's what we did there. Um your son is a sport enthusiast. Do you feel the grammar school tick boxes for sports, or would you choose it? Yeah, if I get the scholarship, I'm after, we're gonna go the private school, and this is the reason why. And you are right. My son is such an enthusiastic in school. We went to go and see several schools: Whitgift, Trinity, some school, and the potential for his sportsmanship. Because I think because of how naturally bright he is, yes, um some of the private schools are not even maybe as, like I say, academic as some of these grammar schools. Not they're not as academic, but not everyone maybe does as well. Like if you think about saying O-Labs and the results they get, or Dartford Grammar, the results they get. But the ones we're looking at are still the ones which are still highly academic. We're not looking at just any private school, if that makes sense. But because of how much more he would be able to get access to sporting, we would go, if we get the scholarship or bursary that of a level that we deem is more reasonable for us, we would go down that route. Just because of sports is like, I can't, my son, he is obsessed, and he just loves it, and I would love to give him that opportunity so he can just be everything. He wants to be an Olympian as well as a mechanical engineer, as well as run his own business one day, as well as potentially be an astronaut. And I'm like, you can do everything. You know what I mean? I'm not going to limit his mindset. So yeah, is the platform? Yeah, I love Emmy. I mean, so I got this platform years back when they were first new. So I have a lifetime access. I don't pay a monthly subscription. I don't know what the monthly fee is, but I really love it. You can do this type of webinars. You can do the ones like a normal one roundtable on Zoom. You can do multi-conference. I love it. So yeah, I know you mentioned Atom Learning. Have you tried IXL? So yes, my daughter does IXL at the moment. Obviously, it's much cheaper. I think 12.99 a month. But the IXL is just generalist. It's not geared for 11 plus. It doesn't do the non-verbal. So I think it's good for just general if you just want your child to do well. But it doesn't have the video. Like she said, she doesn't like IXL because maybe because she's doing it on a laptop. I mean, an iPad. I don't know. It doesn't have the video stuff. Like your video, like if she gets it wrong, she can't see a video that tells her how to do it. So that's why we're switching her from IXL. I might do a little bit more just because she's in year 3, but definitely from year 4, it has to be something specific for um the, the grammar school. My battery is low, so and I haven't got chargers, so this is gonna determine when this ends. Answered. How many more questions do I have? Okay, I'm coming down to the end. The top 5 grammar schools, private for me, again, for me, just look at where I live, and the top ones, maybe obviously there's other ones, and also, and this is just everyone's individual. For me, as a Black Nigerian, born in the UK, I have to think about have schools that have good diversity. And many people don't think about that or don't consider it. Maybe it's a luxury for them. I have to think about that and consider that. Um, and so the schools that I think of and consider are gonna just have factors that maybe you may not. I mean, I think Dartford Grammar is a great school. St. Olave's is a really good school. I think St. Olave's it's our top pick academically. I don't know if it has the best sporting um this best sporting like legacy, if that makes sense. Because if you think about the children who get into the top schools academically, they're not usually great academically and sporting wise. You know what I mean? Um, not that they're not good at it at all, but it is what it is, right? And but then I really like Chisenstead. I saw all the ones in Bexley because again, because he could get into any school he wanted in Bexley. We saw all the ones in Bexley. It's not far from me in Bromley. Chisenstead for me stood out. I really like that one. I and what I think at Chisenstead, for example, because I have a daughter. If not Newstead Wood, Chisenstead would it be? My daughter's much more creative, and I don't think I wanted to be in such a super select school. And I feel that it was just a much more well-rounded school where my Judah is very academic, so I don't mind them being in a very academic school. And I don't, and for me personally, I'm not that big on all girls schools, although I don't mind all boys schools. Again, it's a whole nother other reason why. And then what other schools I like? So private schools, many of them are good ones. Whitgift, Trinity, I really like. I really like Dulwich College. I really like uh, was it Colf's? Colf's not too far from us, and I know some people go there. I like Elton College. So there's quite really good ones around. Um, yeah. How are you preparing for interviews? Okay, so this is the thing. So although you know do creative writing, me and my son have started doing something called creative speaking. So if I ask him a question, normally he'll say and just mumble on. And now I've said, and I'll give him the eye. So I go like, and then he knows. And he says, "Well, mummy," like one of the things I've told him is that when someone asks you a question, don't just start blurting out. I said, we went on a trip. How was it? Oh, it was great. No, he said, well, actually, I really found my time at this place riveting. We've been going through this practicing, and we're doing it in every day. Every conversation, I can be asking him what his favorite food is. Anything we're talking about, we're practicing what we're calling creative communication. And what that means, obviously, for us is that you've got to use higher tertiary words. If you were here before, you know what I mean by that. It means he's not able to start his sentences with just or blurting out. I said his sentences need a handle where you kind of so you say, if someone says, "Oh, what was your favorite subject?" Well, actually, I don't really think I have a favorite subject, but I really do love, rather than saying, "Oh, I like maths," or he has to handle all his sentences. Add a handle at the front, at the end. At the end, he'll round it off. So as you can ever see, I mean, I enjoy many subjects, but yeah, maths will definitely be my top. So he's been learning and we've been practicing this. And essentially, we're taking what we've been learning in creative writing and we're just turning it into communication. And by him practicing it, he's just been getting better. Um, yeah, all we're doing is just practicing it. Turn what you're doing in creative writing into creative communication. Practice. Get them to work on just at the dinner table. We don't watch TV. We ask questions. I ask him about his day, and I give him the special face, yeah, the kind of little funny face we do that gets him to do it and things like that. Um, how many mock tests did you do in total? So we only did 2 in-person mock tests. We did a few virtual mock tests, and maybe like another 2, but we did 2 in-person mock tests. I'll say a minimum of 2, like one maybe like as soon as they start offering it roughly the Easter time, and another one just to gauge your progress. And I say probably a few weeks before your real test. Did you teach topics from the syllabus or did you go straight to exam stuff? Yeah, so we didn't. I didn't do any teaching. I just started with the bond books, and bond is just assessments. That's how I did it. And then we filled any gaps that he was struggling with. Then we maybe do like a YouTube video or something like that. What's my battery on? My battery's 10%. Okay, let's see how far we can get. Where did you get the mock exam? So Atom themselves offer in-person one, so I booked it through them. I think it was maybe like £40, and they had a centre in Maidstone, so I drove down. And again, the other platform I used, Chukra, there's a bit more expensive, like £75, and I booked it. I was going away for a weekend in Manchester, and they had one there. They had it all around Bexley, different places. They have it all around the country. But this is what I mean. Even if we're on holiday, we're still going to do 11 plus. So that day we were going for a family barbecue, and the barbecue was at 12 o'clock. 10 o'clock, he had the mock exam. We went there, and then we straight away from picking him up from the mock exam, we went to a family barbecue in Manchester, and we had made a nice weekend of it. So for us, it was a priority, and for him, we weaved it around his life. And this is what I love about the fluid nature of home tutoring, which I was able to do. Um, um, that was that one. For your daughter, did you set the atom level to year? So I set it for the year she's at. I think there's no, some people feel like, oh, let's do it advanced. They just ask her age. So I just put her age in, because what's great with atom is it's adaptive. If your child is really smart, the algorithm ups it. You don't need to kind of put their age differently. it will, and that's why I think with Judah he capped out of it when everything was at mastery and he still had obviously months left. So I moved on from there. But there's a time when I saw the algorithm wasn't getting any harder. I think it got to its kind of peak level, if that made sense. But when if your daughter's starting in year 3, just put their age in. If they're getting everything right, literally as you're doing it day in day out, the algorithm will make it harder. So that's absolutely fine. That's why I really love the system. Um, 11 11 plus exams are, so I didn't do the 11 plus exams. What's 11 plus? Is that the exam paper plus, or is that something different? 11 plus exam. I don't, the name doesn't, I know it's 11 exam paper plus, but 11, oh, it's 11 plus ones, the ones with the blue one. I didn't do those ones, so I just don't know. um I've done Atom, and I think Atom was really good because I liked with Atom I was able to specifically say the different schools. I think if it is the blue one, I'm about to use them because they just launched a bundle for St. Olaf set 2. So I'm going to buy all those and try them. I have bought 2 of them already from St. Olaf directly, so I'll see and compare. But yep. How do you rate AE books? What's AE? Please let me know. Is that, well, who's name? I can't see the person's name on this one. Maybe what if I show it on the stage? Will it show me your full name? Hina. Oh yeah, I don't know who AE is. So do let me know, and then I will answer the question. Hey, how old do you think you should start preparing? No, so if you're child in year 2, I'd say it's too early. Even year 3, I think at year 3, like my daughter's in year 3 now, and I'll say that for once that's the earliest I think I would do. In year 2, again, just get them loving learning. And all you need to do at that stage is get them to love and learning. And sorry, I'm not a tutor or an expert, so I want to be very clear. But I just think from going through the experience and of working my year 2 is just get them love and learning, get them reading, get them to read to you aloud. That's massively. Now I'm talking about the interviews. Young people, I don't think they have the same upbringing that we have, where we spoke aloud and read aloud a lot as a child. Get them to do that more. Um, yeah. Next question. For home tutoring, how did you mark your child's creative writing? Oh, another thing. This is what I love about Sheena. Sheena had a group. I don't know if Sheena's still here. There's a group she had where you could post your creative writing, and she would call in these other friends who would mark it. This is why I said that she was a godsend. So there's a creative writing Facebook group. Like I'm about to use it this week because Judith's going to be posting some, and you post it. I think it's even Robert's Lomax or somebody was in the group. Some of these experts were there. Sometimes how I would mark it is, for example, Robert's Lomax books. He would give you an example of a really good answer, and you'd be able to dissect it. And so what I would do, I'll take my son's answer, take his example answer, and I'll get ChatGPT to rate how good an answer is based upon the principles of the example answer, if that makes sense. Like for me, I use ChatGPT a lot, and I just use resources around me. I told you I'm an operations kind of person, so I'm great at kind of finding my own little tricks and systems. So that's how I did that. Keep coming. Look at this. My battery. Look at my battery. Okay, 9%. I'm gonna probably drop off at 10. I've got a call I got to make tonight at night as well. Okay, so next, do you use one Atom account for both? No, you can't use one Atom account for both children because my children are very different ages. They'll only probably work with twins who are maybe the very same like intelligence level, if that makes sense. Because remember, they're giving you questions based upon your previous answers, based upon what you're getting right. So it's impossible to do that. I did try, as you can imagine, but it's impossible. What scholarships are you looking for? Yeah, these are school-specific scholarships. Although in terms of Whitgift and Trinity, they have a foundation, the Whitgift Foundation, so that you can get a scholarship and a bursary from that, and a school scholarship as well. So you can double up. A friend of mine has like layered scholarships, so they have 75% of their fees are paid for them. So they only pay a few hundred a month, because they got the bursary from the Whitgift Foundation, they got a sports scholarship and an academic scholarship, so they can do some layering and stuff like that. So they are school specific. All of the ones we're looking for, applying for, are school specific bursaries and scholarships. Now, most schools, they have an automatic scholarship applied if you do well academically. And then we're also applying for all the sports scholarships because obviously how Judo is, he's in the cricket team, he's a black belt in taekwondo, he's a Bromley champion in long jump, he's just really active, that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, so that's what we're mainly body. So it's mainly sports scholarship and academic scholarships that we're applying for. Oh, accelerated education. I've never heard of them. So in terms of answering the question as to what do I think about them, again, there's probably lots of platforms out there. These are just the ones that I've come across, and I haven't heard of that one. Hina. Sorry about that. And then, do you use S mental arithmetic books or S rapid tests? So yeah, I don't know what SNS is, but I don't use them. All I've used is, as I said, Bond, CGP, Atom, Chakra. What else did I use? Robert Lomax, and for me, the crown, Sheena, Sheena, and her books and wisdom and all her goodness. That's all I've used. So I haven't used for what I did use for his. And obviously, remember, Judah was already really strong at maths, but he loves TT Rockstars. He can do timetables like lightning. He can do mental arithmetic like lightning, and this is natural to him. So I didn't have to do anything for that. But with Grace, I will get her to do TT Rockstars. I probably will find something that's really good for her to do quick mental arithmetics, because that's one of the things. You have to answer the question super quick, and he can do that naturally. In terms of non-verbal, he can just do it naturally. So I've never had to do anything special on those things, which I know, like, I may have to do for Grace, if that makes sense. And the thing, I'm not even saying that Grace isn't great at math. It's just that at his age, I'd already seen the signs. When Judah was year 3, I'd already seen the signs. So, yeah. Oh, so why is it connected to my phone? Sorry, for some reason it connected my. Oh, hold on. Yep, back to me. Really weird. So that was that. What is the pass mark for Trinity Whitcomb? I don't even know what the pass mark is. They don't say. So I just don't need to put, and that's why I didn't even think to apply before Judah got 100% and such high scores, because I didn't know what the pass mark was, and I didn't know how well he could do and under the pressure. But so for only upon a friend of ours who said, "Hey, scores like that, you could get scholarships, and even if they give you an option, that all that kind of stuff." So that's that. Okay, so dun dun dun. Do you use Oh no, I don't use Schofield and Sims at all. So I'm running through the questions because my battery's about to die. What bond books would you advise go straight to the assessment, or would you material? No, I went straight to the assessment books. I did think just you want to get stuck in, and what it does actually, if you do the assessment and you get less than 8%, it will tell you what a book to go to. It takes you to a book. I think they've got some no nonsense. Oh yes, it does. If you don't score above a certain percentage, it does recommend you buy. It's called a no nonsense English or no nonsense something. But we just never needed to do that. But it may advise you to do that. Can you recommend resources for certain grammar? Yeah, I don't have any specific resources for that. As I said, other than Atom, because Atom you can search for specific exam papers for that. But again, I didn't apply for any certain. Was your son at greater depth level at school? Well, yeah. So I mean, I guess the school isn't the most like academic school, so I don't. Yes, he's at the advanced level, but I don't know. I wouldn't say greater depth. I don't really have that thing. It's just okay. Yeah, he's at the very top end. They give him extra maths to do. Um, but that's what I'd say. How do we get the discount code from Atom, please? Yeah, so I just need to have your email. So I'm gonna put my email once again in the chat. I'm gonna have to log out now because my battery's about to die and I got to jump on a call. I'm gonna put my email in. You can just at gmail.com send me a message, and what will happen is when you send that message, I will have your email and I can put your email into the Atom and it will send you a referral. Thank you so much for this. Thank you everybody for joining us once again. For me, this was just my way of giving it back. And yeah, I think I've answered all the questions that were in the Q&A, so I may have missed a few, but that's it for me. I did use the physical books, not online. I didn't like the bond online, I'm gonna be honest. And yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna head off now. If you want to connect with me, again, my email's there. Thank you so much, guys. And for some of you stayed for so long, so like thanks. And yeah, I think that's it. So again, I'm gonna end it and I hope there's a replay. And if it is, then it should go around to you automatically. Or I'll give it to Sheena for those of you in Sheena's group. And good luck, guys. And remember your child's mental health. And Jesus loves you. Thanks. Bye.